ask Commissioner Witt to do the invocation and the pledge.
Lord, we thank you once again for the opportunity to come together in this free republic and do the county's business. We ask you to be with us today as we make those decisions. We also ask you to be with the Meyer family and their loss from COVID, and be with everybody who's fighting and their families who's fighting this dreadful pandemic, suffering from COVID. We ask that you wrap your arms around all of those and that you get us through this trying time. We always pray for our first responders and military. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, any additions or deletions, David?
No, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion for approval?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Kraus.
Thank you very much. This is a special meeting, so the board can vote on anything they choose to vote on. There we go. So before we start, I want to make a couple quick statements, mostly for the public so they understand the process. The board obviously is familiar with this, but gets confusing sometimes. In adopting a budget for a county government or city government, it's a process. It's not a flat set thing. So what we're presenting today, they call the floor budget. The floor budget is not the final budget. It is just that. It is the floor budget. It is the starting point. From this point, it can be changed. The board can make changes today. There will be a public hearing on it on September 9th for public comment. The public may comment. The board may say, we like that, and make additional changes. It'll be advertised in the newspaper then, no later than Saturday, September 11th, which basically tells you, coming for the final public hearing, this is what the budget will look like. And then finally, there'll be a final public hearing on September 16th. Assuming nobody makes any changes at that night they will set the millage rate, they will adopt the budget, and that will then be the final budget. So this is a process. It's not a done deal. So it's not like, what's presented here today will be the final product. This is the starting point. I just want to make sure everybody understands that is the way a budget is done. It's a process. It's not a boom, this is it. So, and part of the reason we do the floor budget in a special meeting for the board is so that they have the opportunity to see it, respond to it, and make changes to it. So if it doesn't end up looking exactly like it looks today, that's normal. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, because I think that's an important point. Not everybody is as familiar with budgeting as, we that do it every year do. So having said that, today is the bottom line. This is a working document. Pretty much we know we got all the funds in balance right now. Things may change within the budget, but they will stay balanced at the end of the day. So you pretty much know where you're at. But the final product will look a little differently. So I appreciate allowing me to take a few moments to do that. The hearings, all of the hearings that we talked about will be at 5:30 p.m. in this room. Pretty much you can count on for the next 3 weeks. We will be in this room at 5:30 every week. There's one, our regular meeting is the 2nd. We'll have the first public hearing on the 9th, like I said, and the second public hearing on the 16th. So having said that, we'll start with the floor budget. So the highlights of the floor budget this year is we worked very hard to hold the departments near their 2020, 21 levels, which means we cut to make it through the COVID period. And we're saying we want you to stay at that level. We don't want you to increase. We're trying to control our expenditures. And for the most parts, we did. The departments were very cooperative in that, worked very hard to do that. The biggest difference will be in the salary side, which is why we know there's certain things we had to address. So one of the other things that we had as a budget highlight is we will continue funding the annual repaving program. So there will be in this budget money for repaving streets. Finally, we wanted to fund the constitutional officers' budget request. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with the board. The board approved the constitutional officers' funding requests, so they were all funded at the levels they requested. The board directed us at that time that they wanted to reduce the millage rate. So we, in this floor budget, have reduced the millage rate from 8.015 to 7.815, a 0.2% or 0.2 millage rate reduction in the tax rate. So the board wanted to cut taxes. This floor budget reflects a cut in taxes. And finally, starting back in May, the board recognized employee compensation is critical. We've got the constitutional amendment to the state constitution, which requires a $15 minimum wage within 5 years. We've got compression issues. We've got competitiveness issues because as everyone else goes to $15 an hour minimum wage, we've got to stay competitive with them if we want to hire employees. We had a situation where we have 40 positions that are open, 30 of which have been since January. And we just have certain departments where we cannot fill the positions because our wages are not competitive. So what the board did that couple weeks ago is they said, to start on the $15 an hour issue, we want to do a $2 an hour across the board raise to everybody. And so that is in this floor budget. In addition, they said there's some additional money that we can do to target specific problem areas. That money is in the budget as well, so that we can target those specific areas, hopefully sooner rather than later. It also funds the increases in the Florida retirement contribution system that we are required to meet for the FRS program. And finally, it funds the employees' share of the health insurance increases. There has been some discussion of that, but that's what my belief was the board directed us to do, was to fund the employees' share of the health insurance. We are prepared to talk about that if the board chooses to, but that is what's built into the floor budget.
Question.
Yes.
Go back over, roll it back. On the increase in working with the employees, we said $2 across the board, and then we had money set aside to address critical areas. All areas are critical. Are we going to address everything across the board, or are we going to single out certain departments to increase?
That's a good question. Right now, all we've done is put the money in a reserve account, knowing that by the time, hopefully, we get through this process, we'll have the time to do that analysis. My understanding of the direction I was given, and it may be incorrect, was that you wanted us to target problem areas. Certainly,
problem areas throughout the
across the board is a good option as well.
Board, how are we going to address this? We got problem areas all the way across instead of certain departments.
I agree, Mr. Williams. Well, we definitely do. And what I'm working on personally, and when we have that workshop to address these issues, is basically go department, start at the top, come on, because you're right. We got problems from the top to the bottom, and address each, and we'll have that workshop, and we can address, every problem we got throughout the whole county. Because I agree with you 100%. It's not only one department, it's top bottom, but that money that we got set aside, David, for the additional adjustments, whatever we may come up, and it is how many millions?
Well, we split it between, it's like 600,000 or something like that.
That's right there.
We've got it split between Kevin. 400. Anyway, we've got it split between different funds. You have to understand, not all employees are paid out of the same fund. So we've got that split between the funds where the employees are. So you've got people in the MSBU, like the fire department. You've got the landfill workers that are not in the general fund. Then you have a lot of employees that are in the general fund. So you'll see at the end of each fund how much money we squirreled away in each fund.
My thing is that I don't think we need to, as a board, need to get into who get what and so forth and so on. Staff have a plan, a 3-year plan. We implemented it 1 year at a time as we get the funds available. We can't say next year we're going to do this until we know what funds we have next year to keep implementing the plan, and let them work on the plan that they have. And we stay out of it. We don't tell them to get this person this or that person that or that person that. Let them handle that, and we stay out of it.
I think that's what we made it clear we were going to do. We've set that money aside so David and Kevin could work on the problem areas as they see it necessary.
Bring it back.
This board single out 2 departments.
Well, we mentioned two departments as examples, but
Well, they didn't take it that way then.
But-
Staff didn't take it that way.
but my goal in making that motion was not, instead of going across the board with a certain percentage, to give them some latitude to, maybe some department needs more this year to deal with retention issues. So maybe some department can go with less, to give them the latitude to make those kind of decisions. So we can immediately deal with the 30 openings we've got, or the more critical areas. It's not the intention not to address it countywide, but to give them more flexibility than to just say we're going across the board with this amount.
No, and I'm not talking about across the board with everybody, but I don't care if you work at the landfill spotting garbage, pulling metal out of the garbage, or fighting a fire. One employee in my book is just as important as the other one.
Mhm.
And I think staff should have the latitude to be able to look at those critical needs throughout the county employees and work towards making that pay more effective to all of them. And that I understand that maybe there are some that is more critical, but to me, it's no more critical than the guy in the garbage landfill and the guy fighting the fire.
I think what Ron's saying, we all agree with. There's a little confusion. I think staff knows more than we do. I said that in the last meeting. They know more about their employees than we do. So I think, Ron, I think everybody agrees with you.
Was there any confusion between you and Kevin on what we wanted y'all to do?
Our interpretation was that you wanted us to target the critical areas first, not necessarily approach it across the board.
Exactly.
And I think what Commissioner Williams is saying is we should do something for everyone. Some may get a little more, some may get a little
We
less.
did do something for everyone. We went $2 for everyone.
Everybody in the county got a $4,500 raise with the insurance inclusive. That's a pretty good start.
So I think what Commissioner Williams is saying, and I don't mean to speak for Commissioner Williams, is on the remaining money, he still thinks it should be spread to all employees at some degree or another versus just starting here and saying, well, maybe next year we'll get to other positions. I don't mean to speak for Commissioner Williams. He's certainly capable of speaking for himself.
Well, for the last 2 years, I've heard we have problem areas inside the county we need to address. My intention was to give you money to address those problems I keep hearing about from you and Kevin. Now, if anybody, if that's not what we intend to do, we need to speak up now. But that's what I intended to do, and I think everybody on this board intended to do, is to give you and Kevin the latitude to address these problems that we keep hearing about.
And to me, saying that means do what you, if you need to spread it out, spread it out. If you need to give it to certain, so I don't think there's an argument here. I think that we all agree with you and we agree with Ron. Y'all know your employees better than we do, so.
We're willing to do whatever the board wants us to. That's not a problem.
Well,
I thought it was already a done deal.
I thought it was a done deal too.
I-
But when you hear from the assistant county manager about the challenges, 30 openings, in the road department, I mean, we're going to get to a point where we can't function if that's not fixed immediately. So that's the intent of that motion, was so you have the flexibility to do it.
And we know we
But
have certain
that's not
departments.
the way they interpret it.
Well,
We know there are certain departments where we have had trouble filling positions.
Well, for clarification, my opinion is simply this. My opinion was we give y'all the latitude over and beyond the $2 an hour to address the critical areas, and what's left from there, we'll do what we got to do. But that's just like Mr. Ford just said. I concur with him 100%. And that was my intention. So if that ain't clear, I'll state it again.
And they got to know it's going to be a multi-year process where you're not going to fix everything this year.
Right.
So we fully intend, to do this next year. And if the year after, if I'm still sitting here, to push forward again that year. So.
Kevin and I are fully intend to follow the wishes of the board.
It,
Do we need to put
I'm
that
really
in the motion?
confused. I
You
thought this
understand?
was a done deal.
I did too. I thought
Is there
it was,
something we need to address that we didn't address? We're giving y'all the latitude to do whatever you want to do.
I think the original
That right
motion
there
They
is-
said-
didn't interpret it that way.
Okay, well, I think
why
that's
brought
how
it
we
up.
meant it.
They
Do we-
didn't interpret it that way, what everybody's saying now.
so
Am I right?
So we interpreted it that we needed to look at the employee base, the positions, where our competitive issues were, where our compression issues were, and target those areas that were problematic. That was our interpretation.
I think you got.
I think that's a great interpretation, and that,
So what's
that
the
tells me you do what you have to do to, let's follow the 3-year plan and try to,
Father, 3-year plan, 1 year at a time.
well, 1 year at a time,
Yep.
that's right.
So, I mean, are they
Ain't
any,
nothing in,
so I guess the question is, do you understand what we want you to do? Or
That was our interpretation of how we were
Do you
directed at the
understand
last
today what
meeting.
we need to do?
That is still my interpretation of what you told us at the last meeting.
Well, let me
Rather
put
than
it in
doing
the
across
motion.
the board
Let me put it
additional
in the motion
raises.
For you, where it's on the record. I make the motion to give staff the latitude to take the remaining funds to address the problem areas that we have for compression and whatever. And then if there's any remaining funds, come up with a plan to do such as that
that they determine?
they determine.
in other words, pretty much whatever you want to do, that's proper and what you need to do to get people right.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a
It's good to
second?
be-
Any more debate on that? All in favor?
All right.
Okay. So what has changed from the first time you saw this thing? We did update the budget to include recommendations of the board on salaries, constitutional officers, outside agencies, and the reduction in the millage rate. We updated the budget with last year's adopted numbers. There was a computer glitch in the first round of budgets you saw, in that it was trying to take the budget with any budget amendments that were just done, and in transferring it over, it didn't get transferred over correctly. So we went back to last year's adopted. So what you're looking at on your budget is a comparison of what you adopted last year versus what's on the floor for this year. So it's clear, it's clean, you can track it, the numbers are accurate, and we resolved the computer glitch. But there was a computer glitch. We did make an adjustment to the TDC budget because when we were counting the salaries for the tournament workers, we counted it as personal services and the $300,000 transfer to the general fund that goes to Clint's budget. That was a double counting of those tournament workers. So in this budget that you see before you, we took that out of the salaries in sports marketing, and it's just in that 300,000. So we no longer are double counting the salaries for those tournament workers. Updated the utilities. Obviously, we looked at the utility budget. Fort White was not included in there. As of now, you have an agreement with the town of Fort White to begin operation of their water plant October 1. So we needed to make sure that was included in the budget. So we added the Fort White water system as a revenue and the Fort White water system as an expenditure based on the numbers of current collections as of last month to the town of Fort White. So those numbers you see on the revenue side are based on current collections. And then additionally, we're going to have follow-up meetings with all the department heads before the submitted first public hearing, which means we're going to be having them next week just to go over their budget and make sure everything's good. They know their budgets better than anybody. They deal with them every day. We just want to make sure that there was no errors, omissions, or problems so that we can make sure when you see this budget again at the public hearing, it is close to accurate as it can be, unless you make additional changes. So again, as we said, this is a work in progress. We feel very comfortable with the numbers you see in front of them. They're not going to change significantly. The bottom line is going to stay the same. The funds have to be in balance. We work very carefully with Mr. Powell on that. But there will be minor changes here and there based on decisions you make today and based on our conversations if we had any errors or omissions, kind of Scrivener's errors. Any questions? All right.
David, if I could,
Yes.
Just for clarification, could you ask me about it? You and Kevin called me last week about the insurance interpretation.
Okay, that was, let me go back. Wrong direction, sorry. When we talk about fund the employees' increase to health insurance, we interpreted that as you were funding the increased cost to the employee, but not necessarily the increased cost to family coverage. Some employees felt that your decision was to cover all of the cost of the increase, including family coverage.
Oh, well,
That is not what's in this floor budget. The difference between what's in the floor budget and if you chose to cover the increase in family coverage is about $95,000 according to our insurance coverage.
Do we need to do a
we-
motion on that to make that clear for this year and for the rest of the years ongoing? Do we need to do a vote on that?
No, we
So that
already
there's no
voted.
confusion about,
If
It
you're
being
happy with
only
what
for-
I've done in the floor budget, which is just the employee's share, not the family coverage share, I don't think you need to. If you
Okay.
want to change it, then we would need a vote to change
We
it.
don't need to change that.
I think that was clearly our intent,
Yeah.
the way you interpreted it.
very clear.
The same thing we done last year.
And we all, ever since I've been on this board, we always done the increase in the employees and
That's
family.
exactly right.
And they took, and the employees paid the increase of their family.
That's correct.
Okay, so as long as that's what you're happy with, that is what's in the floor budget. So this is the revenue projections that Mr. Powell presented to you a few weeks ago. Mr. Powell's here if you have any questions on the revenue projections. And then as part of this process, so the public knows, you will be adopting several special assessments. You do this every year. It's a series of public hearings starting next week. Primarily, these are the special assessments you will be seeing in next week coming up. The solid waste rate will go from 189.66 to 226.32. For the most part, you will see Laurel Lake stay the same, Carolyn Heights stay the same, Emerald Lake stay the same, Pine Ridge maintenance stay the same. There are some, I think it was Pine Ridge that had the additional traffic or streetlights. So that's a slight increase there just to add in 4 additional streetlights, but it's not significant. And then Spring Hollow. These are your assessments that go to these neighborhoods that they chose to have these improvements, and therefore we assess them for these improvements. And then finally, the fire assessment, which was done in 2017, we have not changed since 2017. We did not change it this year. So you're still going on a fire assessment that was done back in 2017. The schedule for adoption for most of these is, well, for all of them, is September 2nd, 2021. However, because of the solid waste situation being the way it is, we're going to ask you to continue that particular public hearing till September 9th, 2021 for a final vote on September 9th, 2021. Having said that, it's for legal reasons. Has been advertised in the newspaper or will be advertised in the newspaper as a continuation of the public hearing. So in effect, you'll have 2 public hearings on solid waste. It'll start on the 2nd and complete on the 9th. And that was due to noticing requirements for the special assessment. Any questions on any of the special assessments? All right, in your road improvement fund, we have those projects that we are funding. These are the projects that we have included in this year's road improvement fund. Yes, sir.
We need a clarification on the bottom one. Lenona should be part of that Winfield Road.
It is, we just ran out of space.
Well, last time, I want to make sure it's on there because last time, 6 years ago, when this road should have been paved, everybody ran out there and say Winfield Road is not that long. And nobody went back and looked at the original minutes from years back when I asked DOT for funding to pave Winfield Road before we did the 911 changing on how we name roads, how the configuration of the roads are. And my funding for that Winfield Road at that time was pulled because I didn't want to pay Winfield Road from 41 to the park and not all the way around where Winfield Road used to be. So I want it on there so there's no more misunderstanding about Winfield Road.
Okay, Mr.
So I
Kirby?
want Lenona on that, added to it, because Winfield Road is 4 roads now instead of one.
Can you go ahead and add that, David? Mr. Kirby?
Commissioner Williams, you are correct. Leonia is included within that project.
Leonia. NIA. An A on the end.
Yeah, 8. Okay, now that's right.
And we'll fix the formatting later, but any other questions? Okay. So yes, our intent was always to include Leonia because it has not been repaved in quite some time. We also have a county-funded roads budget, our fund, if you will. And on those, these are the roads that are in the county-funded roads money. Thomas Camp Road, Mayo Road, Double Run, Cheshire, Indian Springs and Wildflower, Kicklighter, Butler Treasure, English, and LM Aaron. Now, every April, by your policy, you adopt new projects that gets added to this list, and that is part of your annual resurfacing money. Do you want to add anything, Kevin?
Just for clarification to the board, this is what is currently on the books. As Mr. Grouse indicated, we do have funding set aside, and later in the budget process, Mr. Grouse is going to be identifying some possible new funding sources. But as he indicated, in April, I will come to you guys. So when we say that for next fiscal year, this is what is on the books today, we will add to it in April per the funding.
Any questions? So then you have a capital projects fund. And in the capital projects fund, we have Clay Hole Creek Stormwater. Yes, sir.
Before we get into capital project board, if staff don't mind, I would like for Kevin, before we start divvying up money for capital projects, I would like for Kevin to give this board an update on mowing first, in case we got to do something to address mowing.
Okay. So we'll do that just before we do the capital projects. So, because the end of the meeting is when we're going to ask you to adopt the millage rate and any amendments you make to the floor budget. So we'll make sure we do mowing before we go into the unfunded capital projects. So you have a capital projects fund, and these are the projects we put in the capital projects fund for the upcoming year. Clay Hole Creek Stormwater, 4775 Cdbg Economic Development, that's running water and sewer lines from the city's project to the interstate interchange. You've got High Dry Acres and Parnell Hills, both of which are stormwater projects that include dirt to pavement conversions that are both funded by CDBG grants. They were going to be disaster relief grants, but DEO has now decided to make them mitigation grants. To us, that really doesn't mean a whole lot. To CDBG, it means a lot in terms of regulation. Where we're at on that is they've awarded those grants to us, so that's why we've counted them in here. We're waiting on them to deliver us the contracts so that we can execute them. And once we execute the contracts, we've already started on the environmental review and the certification to let us do the environmental review while we're moving forward on the execution of the grants. So we're moving forward on them. It's a lot longer than we had anticipated. We thought we'd be further, but it's because the state decided to make them mitigation grants instead of disaster recovery grants. They had to send it back through their legal team, and when you send something to the state's legal team, it just takes a long time. They are on my list to call this week to try and find out where we are on that, because it's taken, I thought we'd have the contracts back by last week. We have not. So hopefully we can get them back in time to get them on your agenda for the 16th. But that's all we're waiting on, that is the execution of the contracts, and then we're going to complete the environmental review and keep going. So hopefully we can get those underway fairly soon. You have a CDBG fund. You applied for a housing grant. They awarded you the housing grant. They haven't sent us the contracts yet. Again, same issue with DEO. It takes a while to get the contracts from their legal department, but they have awarded you $750,000 to do housing rehab. So we put that in the CDBG fund. And then you have a utilities fund. And in the utilities fund, we have the 2 ongoing wastewater treatment projects. The one at the construction of the North Florida Mega Park wastewater treatment plant, which they have given us $10.2 million from Florida Jobs Growth Grant. And then the Ellisville wastewater treatment plant expansion, which we have $1,030,000 on that. The Ellisville plant is supposed to go out to bid next week after next. So we'll be bidding on that in the next month or so. The construction of the service center is almost complete. So we'll begin tracking jobs as soon as they complete and open up the door. It's now Truck Stops of America, and they're going to be the ones that are operating the service center.
David, what would the gallon flow per day, would that Ellisville plant be brought up to?
It doubles their capacity from 25 to 50.
50,000.
Now, having said that, once we get close to 40, you're going to have to start looking at expansion again. We're anticipating another business coming on board, hopefully in October. That was their preliminary plan. And we'll see.
How many times, for the record, can we expand that plant?
It's there are components. You can expand it as many times as you want, but at some point it becomes more efficient to just build a treatment plant rather than keep adding separate. Because the expansion literally is just a copy of the first plant plopped right next to it, and the only thing you're sharing is piping. So at some point you can build enough of these package plants that it really does make more sense to build an actual treatment facility. And I believe that's at 100,000 gallons, but I would defer that to Chad Williams and our county engineer. And this would be the first expansion, like I said, so we'd go from the original 25 to 50. Any questions? All right. So again, we originally wanted to have a separate workshop for discuss capital projects, but we're going to go ahead and do that today. So you know, surplus year-end money right now is budgeted as surplus year-end reserves, $12,100,000 in the general fund. We have $1,300,000 in the general fund for the sheriff's capital improvements. We have surplus year-end reserves, $3 million in the transportation trust fund. And we've got $6,595,357 set aside in the landfill fund for landfill expansion. So as you make decisions today on projects, that's where that money is going to be coming from. That's money we have set aside for you then to just figure out how we want to spend it. Yes, sir.
David, the money we got set aside for landfill expansion, that's 6.5 million, that's locked in, am I right?
That is in the landfill fund and you can't take it from the landfill fund.
Okay.
So whereas the money that's in the general fund, you could say, well, we want to spend it in transportation. We're going to transfer it to another fund.
You
That
can't
money in the landfill fund has to stay within the landfill fund. Is that correct, Mr. Powell?
Yes, and the funding in the landfill, you'll recall, Ron, is a reflection of the plan to have tippage fees adequate, so you always have funds on hand to expand when it needs to be expanded.
And you'll see there is a cell 5 expansion in the capital projects list. The money for that project will come from the landfill fee, not from the year-end surplus funds.
Okay.
Any other questions? So we'll do this after the discussion of the capital projects. In the meantime, we're going to let Mr. Kirby talk about mowing, and David's going to flip over to the other document.
Aboard before Kevin start, and I know I'm not the only one that experiencing the problem that we experience on mowing now. I still have places in my district that have not been mowed yet. And I imagine when in the mowing cycle for not special mowing, but our regular road mowing, the grass gonna be that high by the time they make the loop from Fort White back to the north end. At least this high.
Yeah.
It just ain't working. And then special mowing, I got special mowing that roads have not been mowed yet. And that's why I want Kevin to address this and let everybody hear what's going on. I'm getting the most complaints I ever got in my life since I've been county commissioner about grass. Because Columbia County is used to a certain level of mowing, and when it went from here to down here, they are raising sand about it. I don't know whether y'all experiencing those calls or not, but by golly, I
Three
am.
yesterday.
Huh?
3 yesterday.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Commissioner Williams indicated, our constituents do expect a level of service that we simply are not being able to deliver at this time when it comes to mowing. So I broke it into 2 categories. You've got your rural roadside mowing, which is your big back wing mowers. Then we got what we call the urban mowing. So a little history lesson right quick. 20 years ago, you had 6 mowing cycles covering 427 miles. 10 years ago, 5 mowing cycles, 510 miles. Today, 4 mowing cycles, 540 miles. What does that tell us? We've reduced it by 30% of cycles, increased over 100 miles of mowing. Now, that was previous board's decisions. That's the first thing we need to recognize before we even get into the problems. So when we talk about the way it used to be done, no doubt about it, we're covering 100 more miles, 6 mowing cycles, now 4 mowing cycles. Okay? Today, contractually, one cycle's 38 working days. You have weather days on top of that. Contractually, you do a 10% liquidated damage fee, which staff has applied this entire contract, and they have been a penalty the entire contract. Normally, we do begin mid-April. We didn't quite make that date for various reasons this year, so we started behind. Even with their weather days, they are being penalized. Gentlemen, they literally, their staff walked off the job on the slopes of Bascom Norris.
What was that? Say that again. I'm sorry, Kev.
On the big Bascom Norris vertical slopes?
Yeah.
The whole crew walked off the job. They've got a staff problem. So currently, of the 4 cycles, we're on the 2nd cycle. We're paying $235,000 for this contract. Staff, I mean, we've been very liberal. We give them the weather days. They can't do it. They're not delivering the service that this board expects. That's the contract mowing. My staff has done everything contractually we can do. We penalized, we fussed, we cussed. There's nothing else you can do. On the urban mowing side of things, $308,000 is what that contract is. We had 3 crews of inmates, 3 supervisors, 18 men plus supervisors. However inefficient the prisoners were, because of the time you had to get them to the prison, check in, and check out, and get them back. However inefficient that is, in my humble opinion, it would take at least 9 men to replace 18 men if they were the most efficient men. 2 or 3 men out there trying to mow this county, that dog won't hunt. And that's what they're trying to do. That's an 8 cycle contract. Remember, this is the first time we ever did this because we lost our inmates. So we put together this contract with hope it would work. That's a 20 working day cycle. They're on their 2nd cycle, button up the 2nd cycle after 8, before 8. There's no way, as Mr. Williams indicated, the growing season will be over with, give or take October. They're not going to make their 3rd cycle. Now they're not getting paid, so you won't spend $308,000. What I would say on that one, on a big rural mowing, I think it's just a level of how much money do you want to spend, and assuming you're going to get a contractor. I was told the other day the contractor's not going to renew. He's pretty much ready to quit. On the urban side, that's on the rural side of things. He's thrown his hands up. He can't get any help, so forth and so on.
So his problem really is he can't get employees.
Commissioner Ford, that's the way I interpret it. The weather's been rough on them. as we all know, we've had a very unique season, but he's tired of us fussing at it, basically, right? So he's like, it is, guys, y'all don't worry about me after this year. And I'm pretty sure he's okay with being done now. We hope not. On the urban side of things, that's just a debacle. There's no other way to say it. I've got 3 different key staff members trying to manage that urban side. It isn't working. It's a hot mess. I think they went through 4 managers. 4. The contractors went 4 different managers on his side. First contract. Clint and I got together. We got to do whatever we got to do to make it through this year. But we definitely need to relet that contract or something going forward. But instead of saying an urban mowing contract, we're of the opinion we need to do it in 3 contracts. Roads, 1 contract, guardrail and sidewalk under 1 contract, and retention ponds under 1 contract. Now, we're not supposed to manage a man's company for him, but we are. It's driving us crazy. We provided an inclusive area. Here's where you do this contract. They'll mow this pond, they'll skip this sidewalk, they'll skip this guardrail, they'll skip this road, and it's a dog chasing its tail the whole time. And the contract was not designed for me to have Ricky, Clint, Blake chasing around these guys. That's not what a contract is. You're supposed to hand a man a contract, go do your job. If you bid on the job, you're supposed to know what you bid on. We've not changed anything on our side, but it's just, that's a debacle. Did I answer your question? So you got 235 on the rural side, 308 on the urban side. On the urban side, I feel comfortable after this year letting it in 3 separate contracts. I think a man can stay focused on, here's a list of all your guardrails and sidewalks, here's a list of all your roads, here's a list of all your ponds. I think what I've learned this year is one guy not knowing the county, he can't get it. He just can't get it. On the rural side of things, guys, I'm of the opinion, if we're going to go back to the level of service that our constituents desire, I really don't know why we went from 6 mowing cycles to 4. But back when Mr. Philpott had it, it was 6 mowing cycles. If I mow my grass every week at the house, it's going to look a lot better than if I mow it once a month.
Well,
That's a board's decision.
yeah, one reason that the board went from 6 to 5 was we got all the complaints about the citizens. That last cycle, it came after the frost we had frost, and actually there wasn't nothing to mow. They was just driving, down the right of way. Maybe you would find one road that was growed up a little bit, but that last cycle was done in the winter, and there wasn't. We got complaints from the citizens about the mowing, not mowing anything. They're driving up and down the road, and that was cut back to 5. It cut that last winter cycle mowing out what they call the cleanup.
Is it
4 or
5
5?
or
4 or
5?
5? No,
That was when it was 6, and then it went from 6 to 5, and it's 4 now.
6 to 5 to 4. Correct.
Well, all I know is that when I get more complaints about, we've had all this rain, and I get more complaints about grass than I do about people trying to go home on a dirt road. We got a problem, and one realize now how important the inmates crew was to this county. And I don't know what's going to be staff recommendation on how we fix this, but the quality of the work is not there. I could take my case pocket knife and cut the grass bed and they've been doing. So that's how bad it is.
Commissioner Williams, if I may, another tool we lost with our inmates is we could hit high profile areas when needed. We had that luxury. We lost that tool, and I didn't realize how big of a tool that was in our box.
In other words, if there was an event or something going on for the county or some big, you could go in and mow.
Pick the
Can't
phone
do
up,
that.
call the supervisor. If y'all don't mind, let's go ahead and tidy up the fairground area. We got the fair, whatever. We do not have any of those tools in our toolbox anymore.
Well, I think first of all, we have to agree that this probably is an anomaly of a year with COVID like it is, with rain like it's coming. with the problem of employees. I know everybody's having employee issues. I mean, it's not just, I mean, we're having them right here in the county. If we was trying to do it ourselves, I don't know if we could do it right. You know what I'm saying? So with the employees that we're lacking right now.
Well, it's,
So, it sounds like to me you have a plan to address this, but it's gonna take a little time to address it.
Well, Commissioner Ford, I think what I'm saying in a nutshell, you've got 2 contracts out there right now. At the point in the game we're at, we're gonna just really have to live with what we're doing for this season. I mean, your options to terminate both contracts, we're doing everything we can contractually, by the book, if you may.
That's my point. I'm saying we're doing the best we can do right now, and we understand there's issues with that, but at this time, really, it's not gonna really do us any good to run them off, because who we're gonna put out there then? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I think where Commissioner Williams is going, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're in here talking about the budget and the surplus money and where we need to exercise those funds. At $235,000, if we want to adjust something, the urban mowing, in my opinion, we can let in 3 separate contracts. I really believe that'll fix that problem. I've got my mind around that. On the rural side of things, if we want to get in our mind that we want to put more money, and that's y'all's choice. We can go broke mowing grass, right? But if y'all want to put more cycles or whatever y'all decide, that's just gonna cost money. I mean, right now you're spending north of 500 grand a year between the 2 contracts, mowing grass.
I mean, you could spend 5 million really.
You can.
If you wanted to.
Sure.
But I don't think the number of cycles is the problem, if we could get those cycles mowed.
Commissioner Ford, the reason I indicate the number of cycles, I've heard time and time again from previous contractors, constituents, the way we've declined mowing the roads. We've cut about 30% the cycles. This year's unique. Years past, when there were comments, that's the reason I'm bringing that up.
Well, you know,
I just don't want us to make any irrational decisions based
Agreed.
on this year.
that,
Because we know there's a lot of factors that's coming into play, the reason why we're having this problem this year.
really and truly, it's been a perfect storm. You got more rain than you've had in, I think,
25 years.
farmers tell me 50 years. We lost the prisoners. We got a contractor that underbid and doesn't know, can't handle his business.
That's the whole.
Those are
problem.
all things that we won't have next year. I hope.
In my
With your
opinion, I
plan.
hope so.
With your plan. So I don't want to adjust too much or do for this year that, I mean, you know, for next year, when next year it doesn't rain like it did this year, we got the mowing done, like you said, in 3 different contracts so I don't know. I have had some calls, not a lot, but my district doesn't have as many, but, I don't want to overdo it because we're in such a, like I said, there's nothing you can do this year really, except just hope they catch up. But I don't know, with the rain we've had, a farmer here in town he has a contract in another county. He said, you can't keep up this year. I mean, my yard man, it's usually $300 or $400 a month. It's $700 or $800 a month. It's just, you know, they're mowing every week and every other, you know, instead of every other week like they usually do. So I think it's a perfect storm that we got caught in and everything bad happened, you know.
Well, for some reason, DOT getting their roads mowed on time and keep the roads looking good. With all the rain, it's raining on DOT right away, just like it rained on County right away. But all I know is I wanted Kevin to make the board aware, and you guys aware also, that we got a problem, and somewhere between now and mowing season next year, we'll be in this same budget. So I don't know how we're gonna make an adjustment, because we'll be in the budget that we going to adopt now. So if there is a concern, then my thought was we need to try to address it to some magnitude, because we can't do it in a budget that we've already adopted it, where we didn't do anything to sort of kind of adjust the mowing now, since speaking. Now, and one thing for certain, we always take 90%, 99 and 2/3 of the time, we take the low bid. And we knew this low bid from staff, from Clint and Kevin, that we set it up, ain't no way he could do it for this. And so we end up with what we got simply because of what we done in the bidding process of it.
Commissioner Williams, if I may echo, when Clint and I first worked on the urban side of things, based on DOT numbers, it was north of $500,000. And the guy come at 300,000. And that's what he's referring to. But the three separate contracts, and I'll get with Mr. Kraus, I guess kind of improper timing, but it might be smart to really be thinking about putting some extra money into that side of things, on the urban side of things. Because I'm still of the opinion, I'm not of the opinion, the study indicated that's what it was worth based on what everybody else was paying. But on the rural side of things, I wanted to point out, we only had one bidder last time. So if you even think about termination, you have nobody. The purchasing process, you would be out of your growing cycle by the time you could, if you could hire somebody.
So what is your recommendation? How much money should we set aside for mowing?
Am I messing us up this late in the game? Okay.
We'll make it work.
First question, are you guys satisfied with the 4 mowing cycles on the rural side? That's the first question.
I think they're having problems getting 4 cycles.
But contractually, moving on, we're satisfied?
4.
Well, you're currently at 235 on that one. I think we should maybe put 400 or so available. Hopefully it won't be nowhere near that. Because I'm very comfortable this gentleman ain't gonna bid on this again. That's what I've been told. And then on the urban side of things, I think it's about a $500,000, based on our study, it's a $500,000 price tag.
That's on the urban side, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
So rural mowing, what is your estimation on that?
5.
400 on the rural,
And how much on the,
500 between the other 3 contracts.
so you're at $900,000 for mowing?
I think to provide in today's time, the service that you're expecting, right now, you're roughly at 600, and I think it's gonna be a $900,000 price tag.
Okay, so the roadside mowing right now, you're saying your recommendation or whatever is up to what?
$900,000.
No,
On the rural side of things, you're currently paying $235,000,
correct.
and I'm being told you can't do that anymore like
Gotcha.
that. I'm saying we need to budget 400,000 for it in lieu of
Okay.
235.
Okay,
You're currently on the urban side of things, your contract's 308. My numbers, based on everybody else, when we started this process, was 500. We had this low bid, as Commissioner Williams indicated, at 308. And that's why they can't do it. They got 2 or 3 guys out there trying to replace 18 guys. That's what I'm saying about the inefficiency. Even if it was at 9 private enterprise versus 18 prisoners, y'all see what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And it can be adjusted. We might not spend that much.
Oh, hopefully I'm wrong.
And
Hopefully
maybe
contract-
this COVID, we get rid of it the next year or 2, and then we get the prisoners back and we can.
Maybe so. Okay.
So I also heard the comment, may we always take the lowest bid. How do we fix that? Should we not take the lowest bid?
Per Florida statute,
I mean, I thought
Joe.
that's why we bid stuff out.
Yeah.
I don't think, other than an RFP, RFQ, and I don't think it's applicable in these type of situations, I think you're required to take the lowest bid, Joe.
The key
I
is
mean,
it's
we
supposed
can't
to
judge
be,
whether he can do the job or not for what
the
he
key
did.
is it's supposed to be the lowest responsible bid.
Right.
If you have reason to believe the low bid is incapable of doing the work, you can rule them out.
But
Is that
in this
That is
case,
correct.
he's been mowing, he's been doing the job for his price for how many years?
He's a very reputable contractor. On the
Exactly.
rural side, he's a good guy and a reputable contractor. He just can't get any help. It's his problem.
Exactly. I mean, he's got an issue, same as everybody else got right now. So, I mean, we can't blame it on his bid if he can't get help.
The urban side's what Commissioner Williams is referring to on the low bid. The rural side's not what he's referring to. The urban side of things was the one that was rock bottom bid, and that's where you're really having your terrible problems.
If you're gonna break this up in 3 bids, I think all 3 bids have to be awarded to a different contractor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't let one person get all three bids. Then you're probably gonna run into the same problem you're with now.
Mr. Chair, I think you was on the board when we took what year was that we took the low bid on urban mowing, on rural mowing?
That's why this contractor, we had to terminate. It was about 6 or 7 years ago, if my memory's right.
We had to terminate the rural mowing contractor because he came in and underbid it. And the contractor that we had to get rid of that contractor and let his security company pay us, and we got the contract that we had now, the same contract we have now to do the mowing for the county. We took the low bid and the fellow couldn't do the work. So that's why I'm saying, we take the low bid sometime and we need to evaluate that bid and see if you can do it for that, what they bid it. Now, one might want us to the county for not taking it, but if we do our homework and we can, and we feel that it's in the best interest of Columbia County to reject that bid, it would be the Balfour North bypass, the last segment of Balfour North. The contractor, we had a low bid on that, a lower bid than Anderson. Anderson was second. We had a low bid, and then next was Anderson. After we evaluated everything in the bid and consulting with everybody else, it was determined that he could not do that portion of Balfour North for what he bid it. We rejected that bid. It was the same one that had the contract on 90 West. The DOT pulled his contract from him because he underbidded that section of 90 West, and it stayed there for 2 years before anything was done on it. So that's the only time I can recall us rejecting a low bid, and we did the right thing at that.
And I understand if there's reason to suspect. I mean, we done the same thing with TDC, but they left a lot of stuff out of their bid recently. But I'm just saying, on a mowing contract, that's a little different than
So bottom line, it is
Road
what it is
project.
this year, and you need $300,000 more for next year.
Well put, Commissioner.
Is it 360? 360,000?
Where are we pulling this money from? Do you need a motion?
And the reality is not, go ahead, I'm sorry, Toby.
I feel comfortable. We get to the unfunded capital project list. We can just add the additional mowing in there.
If that's what the board
I
chooses.
think that's the easiest way to do it today.
So be it.
Okay? Thank y'all.
And just for the board's knowledge, and I'm sure Kevin can back me up on this, because I know he's done his research, but many counties throughout there's no roadside mowers no more. They're falling by the wayside. But when I get in my truck last Tuesday afternoon at 2:00, go to Hamlin County, Florida, and look at what they're getting, and they do it in-house. The reality is, guys, we're going in the mowing business. That's all there is to it. The help's going to come back around. This COVID mess is going to disperse one day. Everybody's having a problem. But I think everybody in this room will see us in the mowing business. That's just the way it is. And
Well, you was actually out there mowing.
I-
You were in the mowing business.
yeah. No. I did go help a friend the other day because his kids can't stand beside at the bus stop because it was a little Sherry. She's 3'6" and it was damn throw over her head. That's fact. So, but they got them place to stand right now until they get there.
So at the end of the meeting, when we get to making motions, that would be one of the motions we would ask the board to make, is to increase roadside mowing, increase urban mowing appropriately. And then we'll get together and work on that and how we're going to fund it at that point, once we see where the board is wanting to go. Before we get into the capital projects, we do have the ability to pull up the floor budget. If there's any pages or questions on the floor budget the board has, we can pull it up and go over it. Otherwise, we'll move forward into capital projects. So any questions with the floor budget? As was in your packet. Hearing none, we'll proceed with unfunded capital projects. So obviously you saw where we had the capital projects in the different funds that are already funded. We talked about, in April, we'll come back with the repaving projects that need to be included in your annual repaving program. So this is in an effort to address the charter review committee's requirement that we now have that we reflect year-end monies in the upcoming budget. So as of right now, we put the year-end monies in kind of a holding cell in the reserves. What we're asking is you take that year-end monies, which total $15,100,000 after you adjust for balances and that sort of stuff in reserves, $15,100,000, and we put it over the unfunded capital projects. As part of the second, we're going to do it the same way we did the other day with the money from the general fund. As part of this, a couple board members said, well, what do you and Kevin think? So Kevin and I went through and we decided what projects we felt you really needed to fund. And so those are marked, you'll see as we go through it, with a priority and highlighted, and those are the funds that we're recommending. Those projects that we're recommending you fund total $9,081,789. So if you accept the priority projects that Kevin and I identified, the remaining funds for you to spend would be the $6,018,211. And again, you don't have to go with what we recommend. We were just giving you an idea of what we thought was important. So that $6 million is what you're going to be taking from. Obviously, if you remove one of the projects that we recommend, it'll increase that $6 million. As you add projects, it'll decrease that $6 million. You'll be able to see that total on the top of your screen as we go through all the projects. So having said that, I reorganized them from your packet that you have. I took all of the grant-funded projects or the projects we believe you have a good probability of funding through grant sources and took them out. Because our belief was if you can get grant funding, you should try and get the grant funding first and use your year-end monies only if you're unsuccessful with the grant funding. So we went ahead and took, can you scroll down a little, David? All these properties here, scroll back up to where it said the Richardson stuff. But all these grants here, we felt you have a good shot at getting grant funding for. So unless the board wants to actually fund one of them using this money, we're just going to assume we're going to apply for the grants for them. Having said that, Richardson property acquisition, that goes back to the Richardson Community Center where we know there's 2 parcels that are privately owned. We would like at some point to purchase those parcels. We don't know what that would take, how much that would cost. We're still dealing with the city on property ownership issues, but we wanted to keep that in front of the board to know that at some point, those 2 parcels we need to acquire to make the complex one whole complex. And we are talking with the city about that and how we proceed. City's also talking about closing some right-of-ways that are outstanding, again, to fill in the parcels. At the end of the day, it's one big parcel and not just a bunch of divided parcels. There's been some discussion. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
What makes that project for Richardson property, believe it or not, there is a roads going through that project. There's people that own 2 parcels of land in there, and coming up as a graduate of Richardson High School, when I was in school, we used all that property as Richardson, in a sense of speaking. But with, like it is now, without requiring those 2 parcels of property, and the city closing those streets that never been put in through that subdivision, you can't apply for grants because you don't own the whole complex. So once those property owners have been identified, and like I said, the city is working with the county to close those streets that go through the basic softball complex, and get it where we are able to apply for grants instead of having to spend other dollars to make improvements there.
So this is all, Ron, in the area where the fields are behind there?
Yeah.
Correct? Mm-hmm. Now, Ron, who actually owns the Richardson facility today?
The city of Lake City.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is that if we were to purchase that, and I understand the city's working on a grant, in that community right there to upgrade some drainage and stuff like that. And I know it's included because they need to own the property this time. But David, are the conversations taking place today that if we get to the point of purchasing this property, is the county gonna own Richardson?
Yes.
Okay, so we will
the-
take full ownership of
Yeah.
Richardson Community and Recreation Center.
Well, let me.
Mr. Foreman has comments.
Let me, if you remember, at a joint city-county meeting, that the city agreed to give us that complex. We've already agreed to do so. But during the process, when COVID came, they applied for a grant because they own the facility, to make some improvement within the community, from a COVID grant. We're working, Joel and David are working with the city, to come up with a language that gives us that property, but does not negate their ability to receive that grant.
Correct, correct.
So as you know, since we took that property over, I guess 12, 14 years ago, we have got close to $1 million of improvement in that facility there. So we feel that we should own it if we're gonna continue to put money in it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So in dealing with the folks at CDBG, now DEO is a big state agency. They have lots of CDBG programs, so there's lots of different people involved. But in dealing with the folks we deal with on a regular basis on CDBG programs, we are a CDBG eligible organization. So the city could technically turn the property over to us and still they would be eligible for their CDBG grant. They said the cleanest way to do it is strike an agreement with the city where upon the completion of the CDBG grant, the property would be deeded over to the county. Because then it's very straightforward. Once the grant's complete, it automatically gets deeded over to the county. That's something that I haven't gotten with the two attorneys with yet or talked to with the city yet, but there are ways that we can still pursue ownership of the property and ensure that they're eligible for their CDBG grant. Because their CDBG grant doesn't just cover the Richardson Center, which it does, it also covers the community around the Richardson Center with some very much needed street improvements, sidewalk improvement, lighting improvements.
Well, I'm all for us taking ownership of it, but before we fork out more money to purchase property, we just need to have that agreement all in granted. And
So I will get with Mr. Foreman and Mr. Coverline and with Amy Fields, their city manager, and try and see if we can work out those details, get it in writing so that we have a level of comfort. In terms of the Board of Health and Court Services, we've talked about wanting to move court services into the courthouse at some point, move them out of the First Federal facility. We're in the middle of their lease. They have a 5-year lease, so now's the time to start planning for it. The Board of Health has said that their facility really is not adequate for current needs moving forward. Those are just in discussion phases. We wanted to make sure the board was aware of it so that, you knew those are things that won't affect us so much next year, but could affect us in future years. And again, if you want to talk about any of these projects, we can. In terms of the North Florida Mega Industrial Park projects, we believe a lot of those can be grant funded or state revolving loan fund funded. They are certainly eligible. We'd like to pursue those funding sources first. And if unable to pursue them, then we would seek county funding for them. I'll
Dave,
scroll down.
looking at that, I feel like there needs to be something put in there for the actual access roads in there. Yeah, I've mentioned it several times before. I don't want us to lose focus that 7 years ago, I think it was, the board committed to build the roads going into the complex. And that's going to be a big nut.
You're right. According to Mr. Kirby's estimates, a new road costs about $1 million a mile. So if you want, we can set money aside for that. That would be a board decision. We can also seek DOT funding and other funding sources as well.
Well, that's what this is potential grant funded issues, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Fort White Utilities. As you know, we're going to be operating their water system. You just had the meeting last week about what do we do with water? Do we connect to Ellisville? Do we go to the well field? that they own, or do we put in new well fields? The most expensive cost would be a total cost of about $6 million. They've got $1 million of legislative appropriation, which would be about $5 million to us. I feel that is very much an ARPA qualified project. And my recommendation of the $10 million you set aside in ARPA money, that whatever you decide in Fort White, that would be the ideal place to pay for it from.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I thought that was a great meeting we had, last week with City of Fort White. They're a good partner to have. And I know we had some debating about the 3 plans that we had 3 or 4 avenues that we could approach the water in Fort White, but I'm still stand behind my first of all, I'm committed to help Fort White any way we can. We've got an agreement to do so, but and looking at the long run and what I think would benefit Columbia County and Fort White is the Ellisville to Fort White, simply because we use the other property, 100 acres that they got. You got to buy right away to get the water to Fort White, and it just opened up so much potential for those 9 mile stretch from Fort White from Ellisville to Fort White. So I still stand behind the Ellisville utility to provide waters to the Fort White area.
And for full transparency, they also presented a roughly $67 million wastewater treatment project in the south half of Columbia County that doesn't just service the town of Fort White, but services South Columbia County. That is a project that would probably take 25 to 30 years. Funding over it would be 25 to 30 years. We included it here just for transparency and just to keep everybody aware of that project is a project that is out there. We're not asking for any funding in the upcoming year for that project, but that we do want to keep it on the board and keep it in front of the board.
Tell me this, Mr. Ford, staff, we saw the initial concept about Fort White from Greg Bailey's firm. When are we going to, when they came up with that cost there, when will we, as a Fort White City Town Council and the Board of County Commissioners, adopt the necessary legislation to put this in motion?
We actually had a meeting on that yesterday at 2:00. I was in attendance, the mayor was in attendance, both attorneys and David and town Fort White members, and their attorneys are putting something together now for us to look at for that. So, but now as far as the water system goes, that takes effect October 1st.
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah.
talking about the wastewater.
But the wastewater, we're in talks about that now. Joe, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Chair. So Commissioner Williams, you'll be familiar with it. We're going to do, what we're looking at right now is an interlocal agreement between the 2 agencies explaining what we're going to do. We can't actually go into what the ultimate entity is going to be just yet because there's a lot more setup that's required. We can't get that done before December 26th, 27th, is that the day? We need to apply for some money in this cycle to pay for the design work that needs to be done. And really, we can't form the entity until the design work comes back and we feel a little bit better about committing. But Commissioner Ford, Mr. Kraus, Mr. Kirby, myself, on behalf of the county, and then the town's agents, as well as Miss Heather Encinosa, you know Heather from Neighbors Giblin, she was on the call. Feel pretty comfortable about, asking both boards to get involved in that agreement. And again, sort of that agreement to agree. We're going to all work together to do the planning stages and to go out and obtain the money we need to get through these next few steps, with the idea that on the horizon is either going to be some sort of a joint agency utility or a third party utility, whatever we ultimately decide collectively. But yeah, a lot of progress was made yesterday. I think Commissioner Ford would agree. It was a couple hours and we tread a lot of ground. So you'll see something on that much sooner than you probably anticipate.
And my,
That agreement to agree, we would like in place by December, so it can be included with the submission of the report that the engineering firm is doing for the town of Fort White. We were assured that if the report gets submitted and accepted, then the state will fund the design phase. And so next year, while we're working on the actual literal terms of the agreement, as Joel said, hopefully we'll have the town will have the funding to pursue with actually designing what it is we're looking at.
and for my question, when the engineering firm presented that at our meeting, they had phases. And I think it's important, once we can agree on what we're going to do collectively, and we do it in phases, once we have that set in place, then we can start asking for special appropriation from Tallahassee or grants to implement these stages as we take place. But we need all this in place first, that foundation there that we build on from there.
That's correct. Yeah. And that would be, this first agreement would be the very first brick in that foundation.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is the TDC flat field study design. You've already decided that $330,000 of that will go towards the former CARES money that we got back, the reimbursement for CARES would go towards that flat field study design. So in our feelings, that's already been funded, but it is being funded from the reserves, the money that was reimbursed from the CARES program. So that's why we did not include it, but it is still ongoing and we will be doing that design over the course of this next year. Bell Road Sewer Upgrade, US 441, that was a joint city county utility committee meeting discussion. The entire project improvements that the city has identified, their engineer, for the Bell Road corridor to be able to expand the capacity at the Bell Road corridor, as well as service the entire north half of Lake City, is about a $6 million project. Of that $6 million project, 1.2 to $1.5 million is a section in the county in the 5 Points area. So what that project is to upgrade the sewer capacity and ability from Bell Road through the 5 Points area back into the city limits. At that point, then the city is going to have to pick up the rest of the project, which includes replacing terracotta lines along Washington Street to Youngs Park, upgrading the sewer lift station in Youngs Park, and then bypassing the terracotta sewer line that runs from Youngs Park down to St. Margaret's along McFarland, at which point there will be I call it a splitter, you can call it a valve, where they can direct that flow either to St. Margaret's or to Kicklight. Those would be city projects. Our portion of the project that was recommended by the utility committee, the joint city county utility committee, was $1.5 million, 1.2 to $1.5 million for that section of sewer improvements that run through the 5 Points community, which is in the unincorporated county. So if the board wants to approve that, our recommendation would be ARPA because it's an ideal ARPA project.
Here is what I do know, and I appreciate the city working with us and making the Bell Road corridor one of their top priorities. There is two things that's happening in the Bell Road corridor. I got a meeting scheduled with the landowners next week.
I believe it's next week.
With the landowners next week. This will be our third meeting, but and with the planning and zoning to extend the DUDA, to take all of that in and make it either commercial or industrial. You have to be able to provide the infrastructure, which is water and sewer. The city have made that one of their top priorities. What we're doing right here solidifies that, help for the city to make that their top priority. And by doing that, I think once we submit this new area for the DUDA, that we can get that accepted simply because we can provide the essential services to that area. We have some great partners and landowners there that want that to happen. So, Mr. Murphy had mentioned at a board meeting that all the property that the county owns from Gum Swamp Road back to I-10, that we need to change that to either commercial or light industrial. And I'd like to see that take place also. We are going to ask the city to do the same on their vacant property where they're, going down 441, you got city, county. Get all that unified as one area in there for commercial growth. And one day, it might not be in my lifetime, 5 Points on 441 will look just like 47 now. It would be all commercial and industrial property.
Mr. Chair, I think we,
So I agree with David on the 1.5 million for the Bell Road corridor and the sewer upgrade.
I think we've discussed this many times in many meetings. I think we all agree on the Bell Road project. So if you need a motion to move that money.
So move.
Second.
Got a second? Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I think this is important for our future in the county. I made the point yesterday in a meeting that, right now Suwannee County is running water and sewer to 2 more interstate exchanges, 136/75 and I-10 and 137. So, we have got to compete here,
Yes, sir.
so we can't just sit around and expect them to come without utilities available to them. So, we really need to accelerate our plan if we're going to compete with these surrounding counties.
The next project, you guys have talked about the retention pond behind Home Depot for years. Longer than I've been here. It's never gotten done. We bought the property, or some of the property. We could never get the retention pond from Home Depot. So we bought property along Faith Road to build a retention pond. So we have submitted for the River Fund to fund that retention pond. It does include in-kind services from both the county and the city. The city was in agreement with that previously. It would be $300,000 from the Water Management District as a river grant that would fund the materials necessary to put in the retention pond and also restore one of those recharge wells with the county excavating and the city hauling. We're assuming if the grant goes through, that's how it would be paid for, and we would have to deal with the in-kind services at that point. So we're not asking you to fund it this year. Any comments, Kevin?
Just for clarification, the board voted on the Bell Road. What David and I indicated in X are the projects we're recommending. And I guess, Joe, this is a question for you. Do they need to vote on each individual ones as we go to approval to apply for the grants?
I think that's the direction they just gave you on that particular one.
Yes, sir. But as
He's talking about the previous
my
ones.
question is, every project with an X is the ones that David and I prioritize for this board. Are you going?
David, can you roll back up?
I think it'd probably be instructive if Mr. Kraus finishes presenting them, and then they can decide how they want to prioritize them.
All right, so that's that one. And then finally, there's an aviation workforce training facility. It would be a Florida Jobs Growth Grant / workforce training grant to fund it. HACO has come to us and said, look, we really have to have some sort of way to train our employees. This would be a joint city-county project because it would be on city property. City would be hopefully the lead agency on it. And that would be to build the facilities. HACO would have to provide the curriculum. HACO would have to provide the instruction. And again, our feelings are we apply for the grant if the board so directs us to. And if we get the grant, wonderful. If we don't get the grant, we don't get the grant. The project wouldn't move forward. So those are all the grant funded ones we think we
David,
can.
while we're on that there.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you put these out for us, this little info.
I did not. I don't know where that came
I
from.
put that out.
Okay.
Here is what I do know, board, on the airport with HACO. We are spending millions of dollars, the city and the county, along with HACO, to improve the airport and the hangars. And, the city and HACO are in negotiations now for a new lease. All right, we spending these millions of dollars in order to enhance the ability for whoever is at the airport to expand their business. They got to have workers if they do so. This is paid for through grant money, and HACO would take the responsibility of instructors and so forth and so on. So it's a no-brainer for the county and the city. We getting grant money to pay for it. They gonna survive the instructors and all, to train people to work in their facility once they expand work. They got to have trained people to do so. If they want to do it in house, just like they do in North Carolina, then so be it.
I'm okay applying for grant funds for it. I'd have to look at it real close if we were putting actual, taxpayer dollars to it right now. I know the college has tried to start that program and it just wasn't financially feasible. They couldn't get students, and in talking to some of their staff, even the Jacksonville programs that they're running are struggling to get students. So I think it's more efficient for HACO to do it in-house. So I'm okay with the grant funding, but like I said, if we put real dollars, taxpayer dollars to this, local tax dollars to this, I'd have to look at it a whole lot closer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it here. We're applying for a grant for $4 million, but its total estimated funding needed to begin training is $6,860,000. So where's this other money coming from? Is my question.
I mean,
The other money-
I'd hope they'd kick some of that.
Huh?
Yeah, the other money would come from both HACO and workforce training like Florida Crown.
HACO and who?
Florida Crown,
Okay.
there's a workforce training grant money is available at the state that Florida Crown could apply for.
Well, this is, of course, like Ron said, it's been kicked around for quite some time. And I think it's pretty well determined on the educational side, as far as local college, local high school, it doesn't work. The numbers don't work. I get the understanding of that, but before, and I requested to David, you had discussion about this Tuesday. Tuesday, the grant was wrote, but apparently the grant's not wrote. So I was just wanting to review what the application looked like. And of course, myself and Ron's been fortunate enough to be on the economic board to kind of know a little bit more about the process that's taking place. But there's a lot of answers I got there even before we apply, because again, you're backing yourself into a situation here, and HACO, Aero, and Timco, and all, they've always been very integral to the community, and I totally understand that. But the reality is, there's a high possibility, or a possibility, I shouldn't say high, but there's a possibility, but it may be somebody else next year, because I think they've been struggling to get a contract signed with the city now for a year, whatever it is. So, in the next one down the road, may not even be interested in this format. So I think there's a lot of intense meetings, discussions, commitments, but I just want to go on the record. I'm not going to commit at today, no taxpayer, no tax funds generated here in Columbia County until we got a big picture of this. Because, on the educational part, the research that I did when I was on the board, on a local aspect, it's not sustainable. So if HACO or corporate America that's going to be out there leasing this thing's willing to go down that road, that's on them. But, it's no more different than warehouses. There's coming a time where, you're taking public funds, investing them in private companies, and we're going to draw somebody's attention one day. But I understand that's the way you got to do business today in the industrial world. Commercial world. But,
And you do have representatives from the city, from the Economic Development Department, and the college here today.
they might want to speak.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, to me, it's a win-win. It's all grant money. If HACO and we get other grant money from Florida to operate it and make up that shortfall, then it's a no-brainer. But I don't see where we got money in our budget to supplement it. If we can do it through grant money, like the plan to do so, then so be it. If we don't get the grant money, somebody else gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
I agree. I don't have any problem with applying for the grant, but, I also agree also that we shouldn't apply taxpayer money to it right now. Do we have somebody want to speak on this? I see a hand coming up.
He's asking.
Come on up, yeah.
I have many comments about it, but I'll just be brief about my comment. On the Florida Jobs Growth Grant, the institution has to be involved. The state college explicitly states that in jobs grant growth. And we have not been contacted. And number two, it can't be for a sole propriety, one company under jobs growth grant. I just wanted to make that clear. So I don't know how you're applying for it because it explicitly states that in the grant application. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any comment on that, David? I just learned something.
I will investigate it, look into it. There are other potential companies I'm not at liberty to talk about at this point that the city is in conversations with. So I don't want to tread down that path. But there is the possibility of additional companies participating.
So whatever we do, we'll make sure we comply with all the rules. and regulations.
Well, if we don't, they won't
If you
award
don't
the
comply,
funds.
you don't get the money.
Yeah. So, and
I said, whatever we do, we will make sure we comply with all the rules and regulations too.
this particular grant is being written by our Economic Development Department.
Okay, let's move
We're
ahead.
all in agreement for this. Okay.
Did you want to take a 5-minute break before we get into the unfunded projects or keep going?
Yeah, let's take a
Okay.
break.
5-minute break. All right, we're gonna bring this back into session. At this time, does anybody want to speak on ARPA money? Lance Drawdy, I have your name up here. Lance Drawdy.
Maybe
Lance still here?
Are you Lance?
No, he said he went to the restroom.
Oh, he stepped out?
He said he went to the restroom. He'll be right back.
Okay, all right.
He's a young, dark kid.
So while we're waiting, so what we'll do is we'll go through the rest of the projects. At the end of the projects, then, the money you move over, don't move over, we'll move over. We'll take several votes. First vote is, do you want to fund those projects that you moved over that we have prioritized, the ones with X's?
I think we do that all in one vote. I need a motion to approve.
Well, I mean, we can do that at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry, clerk's. Okay.
All right, we'll start over.
Go ahead, Dave.
All right, so once we get through with all the projects, we'll say, board, those projects that Kevin and I prioritize, the ones with an X, do you approve or not approve us moving forward with them?
So you want to do the priority list at this time?
Well, no, we can't do it till we get through it. We still got more priorities.
Okay.
Then we'll ask about the mowing, and if you want to fund the mowing, and then we'll ask about the remaining balance, a vote up or down on the remaining balance.
You want to go ahead and let Mr. Drawdy speak?
Yes.
That's Mr. Goldie there.
Chairman Ford, I appreciate the time here. The rest of the board, I appreciate it. My name is Lance Drawdy, and I'm here today on behalf of the Lake City Pickleball Club. And if you're like me, you probably never even heard of pickleball until I never heard of it until recently. But basically, what it is it's a game, and it's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. And we have people from ages 12 to 80 that play here in Columbia County with us. And so what we've seen in the past few months is we've seen some really exponential growth here. And we talked to some of the pickleball old timers that have been playing in the last few years, and it was pretty regularly. We would only have 5 to 10 players that would show up, and in the last few months we've seen upwards of 20 to 30 players. And so it's really growing here in Columbia County as well. And we have over 50 players total that play with us. And so what I'm here today to ask for is some designated pickleball courts. What we have currently are courts out at Richardson Community Center that we've been playing on. We have a couple of outdoor courts that we play on. They're unlighted, they're uncovered. And so when we have, extreme heat or inclement weather, we play indoors. And we actually have a schedule with Richardson Community Center where they allow us to play indoors on certain days. And so typically it's Sunday afternoons, Monday evenings, and Thursday evenings. And what kind of was alluding to is what we've seen recently is when we go to play indoors, there's only 3 courts and we get 30, 40 players there. There's a lot of sitting, there's a lot of waiting. And it's really discouraging attendance and membership and people coming. And what we've seen is people leave and go play in Live Oak. And so what we're asking for is 8 designated pickleball, lighted and covered at Southside Sports Complex, which would take up the space of about 2 full-size tennis courts. We appreciate Richardson's allowing us to be there. We have a really good relationship with Mr. Mario and his staff. But what we would do with this new facility right now, we've been hosting an annual tournament once a year in January. We have the Winter Blast tournament. We right now have about 120 participants. With a larger facility, we'd be able to host between 200 to 300 people. And as you guys know, the economic impact we would have with something like that. We would also start a pickleball league where we would include, like I said, we've got courts in Live Oak and Madison. We'd include the surrounding counties, Alachua as well. And do clinics and things like that with certified pickleball instructors. And a big thing, as a veteran myself, we have a lot of veteran players that are playing with us. And as you guys know, we have a large veteran population here in Columbia County. And one of the things that veterans, specifically disabled veterans, enjoy about pickleball is it doesn't require a ton of mobility. You can play and compete without being super mobile, which is part of the reason we have a lot of older players as well. So to sum it up, basically we're having a problem that a lot of programs wish they had, and that's managing the growth. So we want to continue to try to grow this thing as much as we can, and locally, but also for the economic impact that we would have. So I appreciate the time, whether you guys decide to approve it or give us the courts or not. I appreciate everything you guys do. I know the time you take away from your families and your businesses, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So that concludes my time, and any questions you have, Mr. Ford.
Mr. Doherty, did you ask for them to be lighted and covered?
Yes, sir. So ideally, the ideal facility would have some type of covering to help with extreme heat and inclement weather. And if we had lighted facilities, so a lot of our players can only play in the evenings, so we have some younger people that work during the day, and they can only play in the evenings. Some of our older retired folks that play during the day, and so they it would be during the extreme heat. So having a lighted facility would cover us in the evening, and then having the covered would help us out during the day if it was possible. But we just need some designated courts. We at Richardson we get bumped quite a bit because their focus is not on pickleball, which is understandable. They have other programs that they're committed to. But for example, this Thursday we're supposed to have open play, and we got bumped for another event they're having, and so it's so now we've got to go find somewhere else. We've got to go over to Live Oak, and I'm of the belief, being a lifelong Columbia County resident, that Live Oak should never have anything better than we have, and they've got 6 really nice lighted courts, and so I think if we could definitely do something better.
And most in Live Oak, are these courses, are they tennis courts and pickleball courts?
No, sir. They are single use. They are designated pickleball courts. Yes, sir.
And how long ago they built them?
I want to say about 2 years ago. They've had them for about a year and a half, 2 years. And they're at the First Federal Sports Complex. So that's there with their baseball, softball. They've got the park there. So it's a similar complex to our Southside Sports Complex, which is part of the reason we thought it might be
And these courts in Live Oak are covered and lighted?
They are not covered. So they have 6 that are lighted. So they're not covered. So that's why I say, if we could, obviously that'd be ideal. But if not, we understand, we're working on I've been sitting here listening to budget concerns for a while, so I understand.
Go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah. But I guarantee you, Suwanee County don't have a air-conditioned gymnasium to play in, though, do you?
They do, actually. They have the Coliseum. They play in the Coliseum, and then so.
I want a brownie point, but I couldn't even get that.
Yeah, no, they do. So when they have inclement weather over there, they play in the Coliseum.
Mr. Chairman, I think his request would be, he'll be a few years off, but all of that comes under Ms. Van and the TDC. That part of that 500 acres is where we're gonna put all of this, since speaking. So it's just gonna take a little time to get there, but would help them. And one of the things on the agenda is the lighting at the complex at Richardson, so they can play later in the afternoons. For at the top going over, we don't have no engineering or something or what it takes to put the top on there, but if we can get the lights there, that give them longer time to play on those courts there.
Yeah.
But the big improvement will come under the complex, or the sports complex that the county, along with TDC, is going to build on Bethlehem Earth on those 500 acres that we purchased for just what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on any projects they want to add to this list at this time? Okay, let's move ahead, David.
All right, this should move a little bit faster. David, if you'd like to scroll down. So these are the unfunded projects. And again, those with the X's are the ones we're recommending funding. We went ahead and moved them over. That is what's included in the $9,081,000. But we'll start with the first one, which is the Lake City CDC housing loan. It's a $3 million loan for affordable housing. We did not put it as a priority because quite frankly, the county really isn't in the housing business, and I'm not quite sure regulation-wise what would do it. It's a good program, it's a good project, but we thought we'd bring it back to the board. The next one is the petrol cleanup match. That is a EPA-funded grant, and this would be our match to it. We pretty much have to do that. That's a requirement, so that's why we prioritized it. Supervisor of Elections Office improvements, they're very important. The Supervisor of Elections is here today. I'm not sure how much at this point. That's the number we've gotten from the contractor. I'm not sure how much of it has to be done right now and how much of it can wait. We really haven't had a chance to sit down and go through it, but it's a very important project. We just did not put it as a must do or a priority project, but that's a $362,000 project. Station 51 expansion, that would be taking the Lake Jeffrey Road Fire Station and expanding the bay so that all of your fire equipment out there at the bay are covered. It was estimated at 200,000. We think that number is a little high, so that's why we did not prioritize it in this upcoming budget. Richardson generator. The reason that generator is as costly as it is, that would be to make Richardson a shelter during a storm, something very important, very needed. You have to do both the cafeteria side and the gymnasium side. So it's not just a matter of bringing in one generator and just hooking it up with one service. That was an estimate given to us, I believe, by Mr. Graham Electric. We did not prioritize it. We certainly feel it's a very important project. It would be nice to have a shelter in the city, which we don't currently have, but that's that. Courthouse chiller and elevators. Again, this is something that we feel you absolutely must have. Your elevators no longer can find parts. Mr. Moore? So I'll let Kevin talk about the chillers because he's a little bit more familiar with the chillers.
The chillers at the courthouse have been broken up in phases. We hope this will be the final phase. We basically, because of the expense of it, we've done it as we need to do it. Does that make sense?
On this chiller, didn't we approve like $245,000 last year for maintenance on this chiller?
Yes, sir. If you remember, we replaced what we had to replace and we crippled the remaining on. This is the last phase, hopefully, of the chiller system. The chillers have been an ongoing issue forever since the renovation of the courthouse.
So are we replacing the chiller now? Is that what we're doing, or what are we doing?
Mr. Ford, I don't remember all the details. I would have to get with Donnie on it.
But we're not to cut you off, Kevin, but, and I think you'll remember, we bought 2 new chillers. This is for the chiller tower renovation, upscale, descaling and stuff such as that. But the actual, you know what a chiller is, the actual, because we made if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, budget time, or no, it was an emergency situation. We had one go out. So we went back and negotiated with them and bought 2, replaced both of them because the other one was in a failing state also.
That's right.
The chiller themselves have actually been, we're good on that, but it's the chiller, descale, and one thing or another.
What was the gentleman that come, the expert that?
I remember him coming. Yeah. And I can't remember his name, to be honest with you.
But this is the completion of, hopefully, of the chiller stage.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the elevators, that's enough for 2 elevators. I think you have 6 total elevators between the courthouse and the annex. So we'll be coming back every year for a couple elevators just to keep them with current equipment and current parts. Basically, we're renovating them. So that's that. And of course, we think that's a must do. Public Works equipment barn, basically you have equipment that's not under cover. That would be to build a cover for those pieces of equipment out at the Public Works yard. We did not prioritize that. Public Works roof repairs, we did prioritize because if the roof is leaking, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to cause structural damage. We think it's a maintenance issue that we have to address. You want to scroll down? Okay.
Kevin, on the shop in the office area?
Yes, sir.
So the jail administrative design for 800,000, that is the cost of the architect to keep moving forward with designing those areas of the jail that we have not replaced with the pod. We put that off. We felt it was important to prioritize the final funding for the the Sheriff's Office evidence and crime scene building. So we're highly recommending and prioritizing that money from the crime scene building itself so we can get that project finished and complete. In the meantime, I believe first of the next year, we'll have the pods built, and then we can sit down and really evaluate what we need to do in terms of the renovations to the old jail itself.
This $800,000 design factor is provided by who?
Danny Kale gave us a rough estimate. Go ahead, Kevin.
Just for clarification, we're in the very infant stages of looking at options for what is now the existing facility, not the pods. The pods are under construction. We got direction from this board for this upcoming fiscal year to come up with a plan for doing whatever we need to do on the current admin side. Only plan we have on the table right now is a roughly $8 million remodel. That's a roughly 23,000 square foot building. That equates to about $300 per square foot. I personally think that we can do a lot better than that. To me, that's just an unbelievable number. But I'm not in that business. But the 800,000 was not actually a quote provided by the architect. But historically, architects get 10 to 15% of the gross cost of a job. So 800,000 is 10% of 8 million. Now, if you're gonna get started, you're gonna spend something on it. But my opinion, $300 a square foot is not reasonable to redo anything. But you still have to fund it to get started to figure out what your options are. My recommendation on that particular project, if it makes the cut today, is to assign, obviously David and I, and maybe a commissioner on that workshop with the sheriff and Mr. Douglas to really get together. Because, I mean, come on, guys, $8 million just for the admin side. We're going to have X amount in the current jail. Y'all know what I mean? I hope we can do a lot better, but you got to fund it to get started.
But is your recommendation, you didn't the reason for not prioritizing it though is what? Is because we've already got a lot on the table and it's not,
Well,
we don't need to get there this year.
We're going to get there. What Mr. Krause is going to try to explain each individual project. Then he's going to come back and say, okay, the ones in yellow with the X are priorities. And if you guys so move on that, you're going to have your $9 million left over, and then you can revisit.
But I think in some of this, if we don't do it, if we don't fund it in this year's, we don't have to spend all this money in this year's budget. We don't have to spend all the ARPA money in this year's budget. Now, if you take on, you got a jail construction going on right now this year. It's just going to go into this year. You're going to take on an evidence building. If you take all that on realistically, are we taking on too much in 1 year as far as what we can get done and can't get done?
Once again, Commissioner Witt, Mr. Krause is going to go through every list and every project and identify the nature of the project. Then he's going to come back and ask for a vote on the yellow with X's. And then I think our intention is to revisit each individual project, correct?
Right. We'll ask the board which additional projects do you want to fund.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we're getting into the weeds of every one of these and we're never going to get done today if we keep doing that. So
It'll go much more quickly after that. All right. So the BDAs, both courthouse and jail, are those items that repeat the signal so that the sheriff's office and security people can get radio signals in the jail and in the courthouse itself. Yes, Commissioner.
Sure.
And in terms of the design, we would still work towards the remodel design, but we got a lot of decisions to make before we spend $800,000.
Sure, you've been trying to get there for years on your crime scene building.
11 years.
With that 800, do what you need to do.
With that, yes, sir. And with what we have currently in the reserve that was designated for that, we should be able to do the building, get the building up. And then we've got a lot of the materials that would go in the building. And then as we do with all of our projects, we just keep making it better as we go. And I can take some of the year-end money, if y'all allow me to, as we move forward, if there's things we need and identify later on and work on it. But that gets the building going, and we desperately need this. Y'all have all been out and seen the evidence room, and y'all seen the drawings that we've had, and we're busting at the seams out there. And if there's a time to do it, this would be it. And I've done everything the board's asked of me, and I would appreciate y'all funding that this year so we can get started. And just, you say we're taking on a lot. There is a lot, but when do you draw the line? This is something that we can take on and do, and I would appreciate it very much.
Sure.
And I would also like to add on the jail remodel. One reason this was put on till next year or the year after was at the request of the captain and the sheriff to give them time to figure out how they want to make everything flow to this new building. So,
Commissioner, if you'll recall, well, as we were getting into the pod, and we're trying to manage this, Commissioner Witt, so that it's an easier transition. What we're looking at doing is we want to finish out the pod this year, which hopefully by about February, we should be able to be finished. Then we'll start occupying that. But we want to go ahead and put the place markers in, such as sitting down with the architects and being able to take the old facility and having those things drawn out to where that we can, once we, this next year, we'll transition over to the pod. And while that's going on, we'll be doing the renovation layout as to what we're going to do. We're hoping to be able to do it in 3 phases. So this is going to be an ongoing project, for quite some time. And that's what the direction of the commission was whenever they, you guys decided to put it out there. We're going to build the pod and then renovate the old facility. But you can't do it all at one time because we're occupied in it. So that's the goal here. That place marker for the design is so that we can come together, do the best thing we can, do as much cost cutting as we can, and design the building out that'll be the most functional.
And that was the agreement that we made, that we wouldn't do the total renovation. We'll do it in phases. And I think the sheriff and Captain Douglas, Captain, right?
Yes, sir, Captain Douglas.
I want to make sure I had his rank right.
Yes, sir.
Captain Douglas had come up with a 3-phase.
That's correct, Commissioner Williams.
And that way we can pay for it as we go.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And the board does have money in professional services to pay for Mr. Kale's services on a limited basis. So that will get us into the next fiscal year.
Well, I guess my point is, as far as the decisions we have to make today, without getting way deep in the weeds, my question is, are you going to be able to start that this year, the jail administration design? Or is that
On a
something we need
very,
to put
what
on
the
the
sheriff
radar
was saying is
for
on a
next
very preliminary basis. Get into the pod, see what the requirements are, and then work towards it.
Okay.
But you won't be spending $800,000 because that's a much more technical level. That gets into the drawings and all that sort of stuff.
So in other words, the sheriff say you're gonna be in, hopefully February, so say by May, middle of next year. We'll be in another budget, we'll be doing a budget workshop at that time. So if we can utilize those $800,000 and doing something else instead of funding it now, let's do that and not fund it in this budget, because we'll be in a budget workshop to do that by the time he get in his business.
I think that's what Commissioner Witt is alluding to.
Right.
Basically, we got 1.3 million in that account now for that building
Correct.
before he really needs his other 800,000.
Oh, no, it's the
It'll
other
be in the
way.
next year, but we can.
He needs
we
the
can set it
800,
aside, but we don't have to
No,
pay.
I was
the
talking about
800,000 he
the,
needs today
administration
is
design.
for the crime scene
Can
building.
we get the sheriff to
Yeah, I'm talking
chime
about
in on
administration design.
So the $800,000 that we're prioritizing is for the crime scene building. We think we need that today. The $800,000 for the design would be next fiscal
Yeah,
year.
that's what I was talking about, the
Yeah.
design.
These commissioners,
Okay.
Yeah.
these are 2 separate projects.
Yeah.
And that 1.3 million is what I was directed to several years ago to take year-end monies, put in there in that line item for a building.
Yeah.
And we did that over a period of time. If y'all will recall, we had enough in there to do the building. Whenever we did when you guys decided to do the jail project, you pulled money out of that. I asked for that 1.3 to be left in there with this 800 additional, that completes the evidence crime scene building. That is a separate project from the jail.
Yeah.
The jail money is so that we can take, and now while the pod's being built out and finished up, we're gonna go on and continue the meetings with the architect to design the current jail administrative and the core per se, so that we'll be able to, once we get into the pod, we'll start the destruction of the different areas by phase, and we'll have a plan to be able to do that. But if we don't earmark that money now, as we're trying to meet with the architects and all, we're not going to have any money in pocket to be able to pay them. And so it's part of this whole process. We need some money to be able to have them in the room while we're sitting there drawing, as we did with the previous jail for 2 years. We sat out there with an architect and drew it up. And then we changed gears. But that's what that money is that we're needing.
So now you're talking about the jail administration design money.
The jail administration design, there's two separate projects.
Right. I understand. Clear. But what I'm saying is the jail administration design, are you saying you don't want, that you need it this fiscal year? Or are you saying it can be the next budget year?
That's up to you guys.
Okay.
I mean, I'll do whatever you tell me.
The other thing is,
but the jail administration design is going to happen at some time.
Right.
But, the evidence building, and that is a separate project.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what we need in this year's budget, because that's what we're here
the
for.
jail administration.
It's kind of a cash flow issue, okay? If we're gonna wait on the design till we finish the pods and then get into the design, you're not going to spend that 800,000 in this upcoming fiscal year. Yes, Kevin?
But it delays the project that much more for the renovation. If we can do it in concert with, the building this year, what it does is it gets us the year after next to be able to actually start doing some work at the facility, because you'd have your plan in place and your drawings in place. That's all I'm looking at.
May I make a recommendation so we don't eliminate some confusion? If David can go all the way down through this list, the ones that's highlighted in yellow with an X, he's going to ask for a vote on, and then you can revisit each individual project with details.
And Commissioner, I understand if y'all got money in professional services that we could use to do that and not do the 800 for the jail administration design, I'm okay with that. I just would like a commitment from the commission to say that we are going to continue the planning process for the renovation of the jail, so that we're not waiting another 2 years to start renovation. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
800,000 for the evidence room is to finish the completion of the evidence building. So,
No, that's the final drawings are not, that's incorporated in that price. I have a template, but I don't have a building set of plans, and that's what we're going to have to get, is the building set of plans, because over the 11 years, things have changed.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I guess my question was, the jail administration, the design, if the sheriff's gonna be somewhere around the middle of next year, getting from the old jail to the new jail, we'll be into a budget workshop doing the same thing we're doing now. If we can use those 800,000 to fund some of the other projects we got, knowing we got to budget that for next year, will be a given. That's all I'm saying.
so at the end of the day, the priority projects that are in the yellow, the highlighted ones we're gonna ask you to vote on first, is about $9 million, and it leaves you about $6 million.
Okay, and then let's go ahead and get all the priority projects done. Let's vote on that, and then we'll address the others.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and move on with that.
Okay. So scroll down, David. So the other priority projects are the fire suppression for the IT equipment, which is only $18,000, and the generator for the Franklin Street Tower, which Lawrence estimated at $15,000. In addition, we're asking for the $650,000 for the rail switches. We hope we don't have to pay it, but we'd like to go ahead and set that money aside in case we do have to pay it. Resurfacing of county roads. You have, I believe it was $80 million or something. Go ahead, Kevin.
It's 40 million in resurfacing of existing paving roads, and then a sizable number for bridges. But as indicated in the past, that number's increasing by about $7 million a year. We're roughly at $40 million now. Somewhere, roads have become a little quiet the last few months, but that problem's not going away. Down in Commissioner Murphy's district, I've got a road in disrepair. In Commissioner Hollingsworth or Ford's district, Burley Road, it's in disrepair. But somewhere, in my opinion, in our opinion, David and I, we have got to get pointed back. I know we're all on utilities and growth and all, and we got that, but we got to get there. We got to be able to travel to get there. So that's the 5 million, and be completely transparent. In the regular budget, we did fund the 3 million in countywide resurfacing. So this is a separate request in addition to the 3 million that's already in the regular budget.
As you know, this is a unique year and we have a money that we'll never have again. So it's a good chance for us to get caught up on some of that resurfacing.
And I agree with the concept that we're trying to do. The only thing I disagree with is budgeting the $2 million this year, when it's a 4-year deal. And we could put $500,000 per year in it and have the $2 million and free up money to do some other projects with.
Commissioner Williams is talking about the Bascom Norris item. That's a $2 million item.
If what Commissioner Williams is alluding to, after this board approved the concept of partnering with FDOT on those Bascom Norris repairs, we went ahead and prepared a letter of intent, sent it to FDOT. So we have committed to that project. If I'm understanding Commissioner Williams right, you would rather split that up 500,000 for 4 years in lieu of just earmarking it today.
Well, I thought that's what we was asked for, $500,000 a year for the next 4 years.
I don't recall that, sir.
Wasn't that what we was requesting at the meeting?
I heard it talked about, David, I don't recall it being voted at 500,000
I
a
don't believe
year.
it was voted one way or the other.
You just approved the $2 million concept, a letter of commitment, if you may.
Right.
The day is the day that you're going to decide 500,000 a year or 2 million at one time.
So do you want to take a vote right now on whether to do that over 4 years or 1 year?
Is this all your priorities right here?
Scroll down a little bit more, David. So you got Washington Street Railroad Crossing Utilities Master Plan,
That's it.
and then the field laser grading we feel is extremely important, and that's it. Those are the ones we feel are priority, the ones seem to be the issue is. Go back down, David.
That David. Other way.
Other way. Keep going.
And David,
Go ahead and fix those numbers, David. Yes, David.
to echo Commissioner Witt comment earlier, like obviously, if this board approves the $5 million in the road improvement, we won't get all that done by no means in one fiscal year, by no means. But if you earmark it, in my opinion, while you got it, put it in transportation trust, that way it's restricted. You've got it.
To me, it's just tying up $2 million on this, huh?
He's talking about resurfacing, the 5 million for resurfacing roads.
Okay. Oh, you're not talking about the 2 million?
No, sir, I'm talking about the 5 million.
The thing about it is, I'm a planner like y'all. I want to do utilities. I want to get everything in, done ahead of time. But the problem is resurfacing roads is way, way behind. We hadn't done it ahead of time. We haven't even caught up. This won't catch us up really, but for 1 year. So next year we'll be right behind again. So I understand infrastructure. I understand utilities, but I don't get any calls on utilities. I get calls on roads. Yeah.
Make a motion.
So-
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept all of the staff's priorities with the amendment that on the Bascom Norris project, we funded $500,000 with the understanding we're going to do $500,000 a year over the 4-year term.
A second.
Got a motion and a second.
He's got comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I recall a month or two ago, this board voted to pay the county manager You can call it catch-up pay, back pay, whatever you want to call it, when he was managing the county. The board voted unanimously. The clerk of the court came up with a little bump in the road. Mr. Foreman brought that up at another meeting, emailed you guys all the statute that says what you can do. But the clerk came up with sort of a plan that said you could put it in his contract and pay him for the work that he did when he was the acting county manager. And all you guys, I don't see that anywhere here. It's not a lot of money. It's only $30,000. All you guys voted to do that. So I think that should be added to this. You either keep your word or you don't. And there is a way to do it. You can't do it the way you originally wanted to do it. Mr. Foreman pointed that out. The Florida statutes don't allow that. The clerk pointed that out. But there is a way to do it. The way to do it would be to put it in his contract and deal with it. And I'm sure Mr. Swish would be happy to help you guys with that. But I know you voted on that. That's kind of like your word. He did the job. He did the work. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Ford.
Thanks, too. I have addressed that with Mr. Kraus. I haven't got an answer back yet.
I have a letter from the attorneys. I'll send
Yeah,
to you.
I mean, we are exploring that possibility right now, how we can do that. So,
Okay,
and once we get an answer back, we'll address this.
all
So
right.
at this point in time, I believe you have a motion on the floor.
Motion and a second. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so basically, on the unfunded projects, if you want to fund, the ones that are not in yellow, if you want to fund it, tell us, we'll move it over and you'll see how much money is left.
I think we just-
So-
So you're gonna change that to 500,000, that's $2 million, right?
Right, so go down to Baskin Norris. Change it to 500,000.
Then add the other to the 6. There you go.
Now add another 1.5 million to, okay, you got it, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Add $1.5 million to what?
We got it.
Oh, okay.
To the priority project.
So yeah, you can see your remaining, which I think will probably be enough to fund all of them, or maybe most of them. But if you start at the beginning, David, we'll go through them real quick.
Whoa. Mowing contract.
Right.
We need to, that's a
Decide on that.
priority. We need to add that in.
So if you add the mowing contract to this, what we're proposing is a
400,000.
one-time expenditure and then built into next year's budget in the future. $400,000.
Well, we need to come up with that.
No, total. We need a total number.
Well, what
You
David
already
is,
have some of it in there.
right, what David is saying, in the regular budget, we've already got what we're currently paying.
Correct.
So basically
You'll
you'll
need
just add
another
the difference.
400,000 one
So
time,
just right there where
out
Parks
of
David
this.
add mowing.
and then next year you're building into
Right
the
there where
normal
it says
budget, whatever the
parks,
contract
just
is.
add the word mowing. And whatever they decide, put in that last column.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to add an additional 400,000 to the mowing. We'll just say the
I second his
mowing
motion.
category.
I second his motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to add 400,000 into our urban and roadside mowing. Can I get a vote on that? Anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll fix it later. Scroll up to the top again. So you got the $3 million request on the Lake City CDC. You've got the supervisor of elections office improvements, Station 51 expansion, Richardson generator. If you want to fund any of these, we can add them. So we just need to know what you want to fund.
Well, let's come back to the house and loan because we need to have some discussion on that. I was one of your commissioners on the canvassing board. I can tell you that the supervisor of elections improvements are, I don't know why they're not a priority. They're going to need that. With all the lawyers involved in wanting to scrutinize everything you do now, the setup they have now is inadequate, and you're probably going to be on there in a year. You'll know it. So I'll make the motion that we fund that.
I'll second it.
We fund.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the supervisor of elections remodel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Bring that in.
Station 51.
Let's go on down the list. and then
All right,
we'll-
Richardson Generator.
Let me ask you
Actually,
about
if the board has any they want to add, just tell us.
the Richardson generator. We don't, should we wait till we own that? But I mean, what should we do with that? I feel like we ought to own it. before
I think we
start.
should own that building before we spend that kind of money on a generator.
And another thing, just for the future, I mean, this is not only would not only be a county, shelter, it's also a city shelter. So me personally, I would want the city to do their part here also. Because, we're all Columbia County citizens, but also, I mean, what's right's right.
And the reason it's an important possible shelter is because right now the closest shelter is out in the county, not in the city. There are no shelters in the city.
I think it's a good place for a shelter. We've seen the hurricane issue, but, we're a community, everybody needs to participate.
Well, David, I tell you what, why don't you talk to the city and see if they're willing to pay half on that generator?
Okay.
And if they do, we'll bring it back. We'll look at that. So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
under that scenario, I move that we put half of that cost into the flow budget. If they don't fund it, then it goes back to the pot.
Is that a motion?
So move.
Can I get a second? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, what about the equipment barn or the jail admin?
You need to bring that over, don't you?
Oh, he's going to do it.
Okay.
He has his little calculator out. He's calculating.
Come on now, get that right.
Keep going. Equipment barn, any takers?
We don't really know what that jail administration design is going to be. I would make a motion that we put 400,000 aside for that design right now. And if we need to look at that later, we can add to that. But
I'm with
And I
Commissioner
would
Williams. It's
second
gonna be in
that.
the next budget cycle.
At
Yeah,
least,
you want to wait till the next budget cycle?
No,
to do
I
that?
say, give him 400,000 just so you got
That way
something
he
there in
can
case,
get-
but
Right, yeah.
that way he can get it going.
Okay, I'll make
And
that
I
a
would
motion.
second that.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. No, keep going down.
Jail
Jail
administration.
administration design. 400,000. You must have unfroze the top. Oh, there it is. No, it's there. Okay. Cybersecurity, I would not recommend doing. Literally, that's having Motorola upload all the software upgrades, them test it out, and then send it down to us. It's certainly very nice, great program. I don't think it's essential, but the router upgrades and the VOP switches, those are the ones that basically are nearing the end of their life. We don't fund them. We would just replace them and fund them when they die. But they're about 5-6 years old. They are going to eventually die. So you could fund those and that would be good, but it's not critical.
It's only critical when they go down, right?
It'll be critical when they go down. Then it's an emergency.
I'll make a
purchase.
motion to fund that.
I second.
Got a motion and a second.
Which one we funded, Mr.
The
Chairman?
router upgrades and the VoIP switches.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
The 911 AC monitor program, I think that could save us a lot of money right there for a little bit for that $17,000. I'll make a motion, we fund that.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And generator monitoring?
Does that mean a maintenance program?
We already have the generators under maintenance. What it means is you can sit in your office, wherever it is, and keep track of the generators and how they're performing, so that if something's going wrong, you could theoretically see it before it goes wrong.
That'll save us money, so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, keep going. You want to put any money aside for the Parkway internal roads? We don't have design yet, so we don't really know what that cost will be, roughly $1 million a
Let
month.
me ask you a question. Do we need any money to design these roads? Engineering, are we doing that in-house or
The
Mr.
design
Kirby
has been
wants-
paid so far by warehousing.
Mr. Kirby?
In my opinion, we're in the infant stages with the sewer plant, the water plant, everything we've got going on out there. And there's still things subject to change. I just think you're getting ahead of yourself to getting the road business out there right now.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves to be in the road business out there right now with, between the sewer plant, the Leachate collection system, part of it, the water. There's just a lot of moving parts out there that's going to happen this next fiscal year.
Similar with the recharge reuse, until we get our consumptive use permit, we really don't know how to proceed on that. So it's something you need to be aware of. We'll have to eventually fund it, but right now we don't have any projects.
What about County Road 6?
County Road 6. We know that project could cost anywhere from just repaving to replacing bridges to everything, anywhere between $3 million and $9 million. We're still pursuing grant funding on it, but it's getting in worse and worse condition. How much money do you want to fund?
And please be reminded, it is currently at FDOT. We've not received an answer, but it is on their priority list. I just want to throw, if this board chooses to put money towards it, what I would definitely recommend is with a condition that we wait to see if FDOT funds it. We'll know that in the pretty immediate future.
Okay, now with Road 6 and Old Country Club, like we had discussion before, Kevin, just as an example, wouldn't it be advantageous for us to throw some money at it to, help
Absolutely.
our friends at FDOT?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Sure.
And, because I think we all decided last time that, definitely 6 and Old Country Club was definitely a high priority.
What would be appropriate in the amount? What would be an appropriate amount?
That's what I was fixing to ask, Robbie.
Well, as David indicated, up on 6, that's a unique job because of the bridges. So you can range from 3 million, if my memory's right, to repave the road, up to about 8 million if you're gonna, you gotta be reasonable. You can only afford what you can afford, but you don't want to go up there and redo a road, then have to come back, and tear up half the road, build the bridges back, right? But you can only do what the money allows you. But you just put $5 million on top of your 3 million, that gives you 8 million in your county funded pot of money, up to 8 million for this upcoming fiscal year. And we do have a tad of a rollover for April, for this coming fiscal year.
Mhm.
Because we'll re-identify the projects not on the list today in April. Now, I've always been of the opinion, if it's a potential grant funded project, we're $40 million behind in totality, okay? I've always been a fan of taking county monies and apply those to projects that we know will never be eligible for FDOT. 6 is definitely eligible for FDOT, Country Club for FDOT. So if you got to count your money, if you're so far in debt, in my opinion, you need to focus your money on those projects non-eligible for FDOT. Now, once in a while, you're going to bump into an emergency. Wire Road, 6. Old Country Club needs repaving, but we're not getting calls on it every day. 6, you get calls on every day. Wire Road, you get calls on every day. So that's where you got to kind of strategize yourself. If I were to put money, what I guess I'm saying is if you funded State Road 6, just call it $3 million. You could fund it, and you could move it to Transportation Trust. Therefore, it is restricted. You cannot move that money around such as you can this general fund. So then we promised, and if this board so desires, you could put $3 million in theory to State Road 6 in the Transportation Trust, with the exception if it is funded by FDOT. So you've covered your bases in both ways, is what I'm saying. If FDOT funds it, that just leaves you another $3 million on top of what you'll now have $8 million in that fund. Actually, a little more than 8, because you'll have about $1.5 million rollover from this current fiscal year.
Well,
So you're saying we'll have about 9.5 in Transportation Trust right now?
You've currently funded 8 million. You got about $1.5 million rollover, so that's 9.5.
So we have some money to put towards 6 if we need to. in there now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We do.
But we don't want to make it so easy on FDOT that they're just going to say, well, hey, they're going to pay for the asphalt. You know, we'll fund them on the bridge.
But Commissioner Murphy, I will comment. I had a real good meeting with them a few months ago. They like seeing us working with some of our local monies on our roads. But maybe we'll get lucky with 6 through FDOT. But to answer Commissioner Ford's questions, yeah, you're going back, you've got 9.5 million in it right now.
So basically, what I'm saying right now, if they come back and say, look, we got 2.5 million, if y'all put $1 million for it, we've got money we can put in there.
We do. And then I'll conclude by, I've never seen us in this financial condition, a good problem to have. And I'll echo what Mr. Osborne said. I don't never see us having this again.
Correct.
So if you got a road problem, we got a $40 million road problem, all these projects feel good and they're needed. I mean, that's why we highlighted them.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I'm like Commissioner Witt, we don't have to put all this money in there right now. If we put it in reserve, we have it there. If something comes up, we really need to fund.
I'm trying to be completely transparent. Once you put it in that transportation trust,
It can't come out.
it's locked.
It's locked.
That's right.
There you go. And that's why that $5 million addition there is very, very important in this budget.
So saying that, what's the wishes of the board?
I'm hearing consensus that we're going to take care of 6 out of the existing money in the transportation trust. So let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, keep scrolling down. So then you got your Parks and Rec projects.
5 Point Park restroom,
I
Mr.
got
Chairman.
one question. So are we taking the whole 3 million that we're talking about for the asphalt aspect of it on Road 6?
We didn't take any for it.
You got $5 million in there for road repaving. You didn't add any additional for 6.
I thought I just heard Toby say.
No, we're going to take care of it with
I understand where you're
existing.
coming from now, but yeah, okay.
I got it now. I thought I was-
So you've got 5 million of year-end monies going to road resurfacing, and then your annual road resurfacing budget.
Okay.
Hold it right there. The field lights at Richardson. That would help the pickleball. We've got a lot of money invested in there for the outside field lights.
So the Richardson outdoor court lights and the field lights, is that two?
No.
Yeah, they're two separate things. The
They're
court
two
light is
different things.
to,
I don't think we need to fund the field lights now. Once we get this property straight, we can probably for that grant, we can get grant to put those lights up.
So which one are we referring to? The court lights?
Richardson outdoor court.
Court.
the court lights is for the
Outfield.
basketball,
Court
pickleball
light.
courts. Field lights is for the baseball field.
Yeah, the court light.
Court lights are the pickleball and different.
Yeah.
Right, so I think what Commissioner
that-
Williams is saying, it's
that's
important
fine.
to fund the court lights,
Fund the court lights.
but not the
Yeah,
field
let's
lights
make
at
a-
this
I'll make
time.
a motion, we fund the court lights.
Second.
No, that's what I want funded.
Okay, got a
Second.
motion and a second, all in favor?
All right.
All right.
Go ahead and do that, David.
Then I want the bathrooms at 5 Point. So they don't have to use Robbie's bathroom.
Right now, you have no bathrooms at that park and you have park facilities. That is a problem.
And it stays, 5 Point Park is being used a lot. It's fixed up and it's not.
I believe that
I
would
move
keep
that
us up to
we
compliance.
put the 5 Points Park restrooms in.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, so that's passed. Rum Island Gate improvements, let's talk about that for a minute. Now, David, I see y'all got it up here for 30,000.
Right.
But I was under the understanding that we had the money to do that in the money we get for the boat registration.
You have some money to offset that, so it won't cost us 30,000.
So,
That was for the additional improvements beyond what we witnessed at the other park. So it's really gonna be more like about 10,000.
say that again?
At the end of the day, it'll be more like 10,000 above what the boat money is.
So basically, we're looking at, we've got it mostly funded, but about 10,000.
Right.
And what are the improvements real quick?
Okay, what we're proposing to do down there, they've got a gate system sort of like over in Gilchrist County now. It's a gate with an arm. It accepts credit cards, debit cards. Has an arm that opens and closes. It can actually count the number of cars going in, count the number of cars going out. So if the parking lot's full, it won't let anybody else in. It would be a major improvement and solve a lot of problems, I think, at Rum Island. I didn't realize it was gonna cost quite $30,000, but I think that includes putting a power pole down there.
You got to put in a power pole.
And-
You're
and
going to have
see,
to put the
and
little
that's another
wires in the
problem.
road.
We're trying to run cameras down there off of solar now, and it's not working.
You need cameras.
Can we get insurance on that gate?
Yes,
I guarantee you it'll be towed out.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, but if we have power down there, at least we'll have cameras. We'll know who tore it down. Right now, we've got cameras down there that basically are useless.
The problem is with the tree coverage in Rum Island
But I'm
Park,
just
you
saying,
can't
we
take
don't
out
have-
the trees. The solar power isn't a reliable way.
We should have just run powers down there to start with. I'll make a motion that we approve
Second.
Rhode Island Gate improvement. Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Now, where is that gonna be paid from?
That's just year-end money.
Registration?
Some of it come from the money they spend on boat registration.
Well, don't we need to, well, how much? We're not gonna take it all out of what we got left there. Do we know how much?
We don't know exactly. David said about
We'll work up a number
$10,000.
for you. We'll work up a number for you.
Okay.
If you go ahead and put the full 30,000, know that it'll be less, and we'll get you that number.
But what you do, Ron, not only do you have an arm, you have spikes too. The arm ain't gonna be there a day. I brought this idea up a long time. It's a good idea, but you gotta have the tire butt poppers too.
Well, if you got cameras, at least you'll know who tore it down.
Yeah.
One of them
Yeah.
Ford boys.
And realistically, the alligator
One of them
lake,
Fords.
realistically, the alligator lake shade structure needs to be replaced.
So
I'll
move,
make a
Mr. Chairman.
motion. We have
So move.
Second.
That was very
got a
important.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So you still have $5.9 million. Any other projects you want to fund at this point, or you just want to put that into a reserve?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let's scroll back up to, all the way up on the start. Hold on, that's too fast, I can't read it.
Keep going.
No, the one with, the loan, $3 million loan.
Yes.
$3 million loan.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about for the housing loan?
Yeah, for the housing thing, it's my understanding that, we don't have to fund this now. If the board decide to help them, they need a letter of commitment from the county stating that we would pick up the last part of their project, based on them receiving $17 million, that we would be responsible once they receive that at the latter end of their project to loan them that money. Mr. Kelly, am I right? Yes, sir. What we come up?
So it's gap funding. You would be committing to fund the gap of,
I would like to see what they've done with the property we bought already.
Well, this is the property there now. This is where they won't put this.
Yeah, make sure the clerk gets one.
So, yeah, thank you for considering our request. You could see on the second page, the proposal that we have. So you can see it's $3 million, 1% interest, so we'd be making annual payments. I just want to say this development would not be feasible without your support. And yeah, we're asking for a loan, not a grant. So. Yeah, and the thing is, we have, as we mentioned, $8 million of tax credits and $5.5 million of state funding. So, we really are not coming to you empty-handed. I think that's really important to just to say. Affordable housing is a county initiative. I think it's something that the county wants to support. And no, if you want to say anything.
Well, yeah, which everybody knows part of the county's comprehensive plan to provide affordable housing for existing and future citizens of Columbia County. We've managed to get some money from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for a small county that hadn't been done before. So Columbia County will be the first county to receive this funding for affordable housing from Florida Housing Finance Corporation. The loan that we're requesting, like I said, will be returned over a 15-year period. As you can see on your request here, all these terms, conditions apply. It's what our co-developer and myself are committed to doing for this loan. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to address any questions that you might have.
So explain to me how we fund this loan. We fund it out of this money? Do we fund it?
This would be, you're saying, if you fund it out of this money, it'd be year-end money. One time, non-recurring.
Is that our only option for funding this? This couldn't be a ARPA?
It possibly could be an ARPA.
I say we table at this point. I don't say we say no, but let's table it until we can get more information on this. David, I want you to look into this and bring us a report back on everything that's going on here exactly, and we can make a decision on that at that time. I'm looking at the loan agreement. I just don't see how you hold anybody accountable if it don't get paid back. Is what I'm looking at here.
If I may, we would be signing a mortgage, so you'd have lien rights on the property. We also have other responsibilities to pay back the financing. We have affordable housing requirements that we have to adhere to. So being paid back is, that's going to happen. You're going to have documentation for that. So
can we get a breakdown on what the payments would look like?
Yeah, so it'd be 1%. It's 1% every year.
It's just 1% interest only.
30,000.
So
that's what I'm saying. I just don't know what the payback would look like.
It'll be 30,000 per year in interest payments, and then 15-year loan with a 24-month grace period, and then it would balloon, and we pay you back at that point.
So basically, you'd pay 30,000 a year in interest payment, 15 years, and then at the end of the 15 years,
you pay
you do a balloon for how much?
That's correct, for the $3 million.
And that's my point at that time. And at the end of that time,
Who's the guarantor?
who's the guarantor of that balloon at that time?
The guarantor of the $3 million loan. It would be the same, as our other guarantees that we're providing on the property. So come from our partners. So.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
This is why I want you guys to get with David before you came here today. And I don't know whether you could got to him or not.
Yeah, we did.
So all this could be answered. But it's my understanding that as of now, if the board agreed to this, that you don't need the money right now.
No.
All you need is a letter of commitment from the board to secure the rest of your money.
Exactly.
And then if you don't secure the money, then this agreement is is voted anyway.
Pretty much, if we can't secure this gap funding, the work we've already done to develop that property is almost nearly void. But we actually need this commitment from the county commissioners to secure these other loans that we have from Florida Housing Finance and the bond loan, the security bond.
So this would be all contingent upon you getting other loans, not just ours.
No, we already got them. They already committed.
Correct. Yeah, we
But
have
we
the
need a
funds.
gap financing, the $3 million, to let them know that we have support here locally. But it's an affordable housing project.
Well, I think that the chair have a great idea. Put all this together, let Joe review it and all, and then bring it back to us, and then the board or all. Yes, David.
If the board were to commit the money, you would be just setting the money aside.
Right.
Obviously, you would want your attorneys to draft the agreement and verify that. I'm not a real estate attorney.
Yes,
I
that's
would
why I
not
said
even
Joe.
attempt to draft a real estate agreement. You would have to refer it over to your attorney to work out the details of this type of.
Yeah, and that's what I said.
Well, yeah, the money wouldn't even be
What?
needed now to the third quarter of 2022. It's about when we be ready to draw down on the $3 million loan.
Are the city throwing any, or y'all
We've got-
asking the city for any money?
Yes, we got $200,000 in cash, a grant from the city of Lake City, plus some in-kind work that will be done on the project itself.
Uh-huh.
So we are looking probably around $400,000 from the city, but this would be a grant, not a loan. What we actually counted for is a $3 billion loan that we pay back in 15 years. It's going to help us to push this project forward with this gap funding that we need.
Because the 2-year, I've seen it right here. So it's 15 years, you're gonna pay $30,000, then the 2-year, explain that to me there at the end.
They're gonna pay a balloon at the end of 15
But
years.
they've got a
But
2
you can take it out
2-year
17 years, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
And you can assume it'll go to the 17.
you can, be sure it would go.
Like I said,
Well, I mean,
Because they're still there.
without getting into the because they can hash out details, but you know, one of the missions of the ARPA money was affordable housing. It's one of the things we as a board should be advocating. Now they're doing the work for you because they're securing this $17 million grant that we've never got before. And I'm of the opinion that once we get one, you know, we'll be on the radar to get more, and we can help this problem.
Exactly.
So I mean, this is something we as government should be helping with anyway. We're kind of just outsourcing it. They're a nonprofit company. They're doing all the work for you. So, and it meets the mission of ARPA. You're sitting on all this ARPA money. It's one of the things you're supposed to spend ARPA money on. So I'm in favor of it just because I serve on the homelessness committee, and this is an ongoing need. Every single meeting we talk about affordable housing, and it seems like nothing ever gets done. We kick it down the road, and now you've got a chance to do something. And it's $3 million. It's $3 million loan. Will eventually get paid back, but you got to look at the big picture. You're securing $17 million, and you never got that before.
Amen.
And I'm not
Thank you.
against it at all. I just want to make sure I understand it when I vote on it. That's why I was asking for it to be brought back and presented to the
Do we want
board.
to make
Because
a motion?
I need more explanation how it works. Exactly.
Do a
So,
motion contingent
but for
upon the lawyers.
clarification,
What else you need to do?
when the board originally divvied up the ARPA money, there wasn't $3 million for housing. So that's why we didn't assign it to ARPA. Because where you put the ARPA money, there isn't $3 million for housing. You've got now almost $6 million here that you haven't spent. Do you want to reserve some of that for this project while it goes through the legal process?
We need that letter of commitment saying that Columbia County will commit to this project development for everything else to move forward. And like I said, the third quarter of 2022 is probably when we'll be calling down on some of the money, if not all of that grant, of the loan that we're requesting.
Joe, would you have anything to add to this?
No, sir. I mean, legally, the county's authorized to make loans if for no other reason than under 125.045, we can structure it as an economic development incentive and create a loan. So, you know, but I think the commissioner's points are well taken that, you know, we need to make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted if the county's going to loan $3 million to anybody.
So, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just say, I'd like to make a motion that we, have Joe look at this and address all the issues, bring it back to us, and if everything looks right, I have no problem funding this project.
Well, I just wanted to say with a project like this, time is very important for us. So, delaying it could cause issues with our other financing. We have deadlines for state funding. I think that the economic impact from this development would be significant.
What's your
And-
deadline? On us?
We have deadlines to complete construction.
I'm talking about on us.
22.
What is the latest we could,
For you, the funding would be in, third quarter 2022, is when we would expect to close.
Which would be the last quarter of our fiscal.
But what they need now is a letter
Yes.
that we're committed to the project. That's all they need today.
So all you would be doing is setting this money aside and committing to move forward with the project.
So it's a no back out deal. If we don't like the fine print, and I'm with Toby, I think we need to invest money in this type, but it seems like to be the discussion we're having today, we should have had 6 months ago with this group.
We didn't have our financing that long. We just got invited.
But you're asking 70,000 taxpayers to go on the hook without a defined contract. My constituents don't like that.
Oh, we're not asking you to sign a contract now.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, but you understand what I'm saying on the political side or whatever you want to call it. I'm for the project. I've supported it since day one. But, you're saying your time frame. We're here trying to decide whether or not, okay, we go ahead and give you a commitment today. And if the paperwork don't look good, so when's your other loaners gonna, when are they gonna come forward? When are they looking, because they're gonna give you the money when?
So this is a process where we have to do development and incur significant capital, expenses on our own. And we have to we have to get plans done. We have to permit. And after that, during that process, we're going to get our financing from, we still have to get a bank loan. We still have to get equity investors to buy the tax credits. So all those things, can't even start for, until we get further along in the development. But we can't start that process until we have a commitment from you, just because this development doesn't work without that loan. So I don't know if that clarifies, but.
Mr. Chair, I think the process that was laid out a few minutes ago would work, and then the board can make that commitment after we got something that we can look at.
Yeah, I think they need to submit a contract for us to look at and make sure that our attorney agrees with it.
You all understand what we're saying?
Well, besides the 7 terms that we have here
This is
for the loan, what else do you need specifically?
Well, this isn't a contract.
It's not a
This is
contract.
what we think what we're gonna do. We really need it in writing for a lawyer to look at it. I mean, this is saying what you're gonna do, and I believe you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But we gotta have that in legal
form.
We would have to have a contract. We'd have to have the mortgage drawn up. We'd need title insurance. We need to do due diligence on any guarantors. I mean, it's a significant amount of money to loan. And there'd be a lot of due diligence that have to be done before we could go to closing. So I think what the board's looking for right now is more concrete terms, and then entering into that due diligence period to decide if we would actually close the loan.
I mean, we could make it subject to that.
And then part of that language would be in this agreement is subject to you all attaining your other loans. And then the county
Absolutely.
would pick up the $3 million at the end of your construction when you need it. So, we can give a letter of intent for you to help secure a loan, but all this has to be on legal form. It can't be this piece of paper y'all gave us.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
So your letter of intent.
That's all the board is saying.
The letter of intent from the county to this Sweetwater development depends on the terms that we set forth or the attorney put up.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. McCallum, but that's not what the board wants. The board telling you what you need to present to this board in order for this board to make a decision to give you the $3 million. So we can't do it up here talking. You all got to get an attorney to work with our attorney and staff to come up with this form, with this agreement. And then this board have something to look at that's been approved by our attorney saying this meet the guy, this covers the county's back, is what we're saying. Isn't that all we're saying, Joel?
Commissioner, this is really more like, a construction loan. And if you've ever built a building and you've used borrowed money to do it, there's processes that go, release of funds, inspections, appraisals. We have to know that the value of the asset after it's constructed is actually going to be what's being represented. That has to be, that's not determined by us and it's not determined by the borrower, it's determined by an appraisal. There's just lots of things that have to go into it. And if you're putting $3 million, as Commissioner Murphy stated, of taxpayer money on the line, all these little things have to be done. It's y'all's fiduciary duty as a board to make sure these things are being done. And so I think the commission's point is well taken, that, hey, it's a project we're supporting, but before you can actually commit anything, you have to know all the details. And it's not that they can't be known and they can't be discovered. It's just, it's work. It's just got to be worked.
Is there any way to do a letter of intent that says we'll do this?
You can effectively do.
Everything meets
Contingent
our,
upon.
You can do something that has the effect of like a non-binding resolution or a memorandum of understanding that just says, hey, based on what we've heard so far, we're pretty enthusiastic, but we reserve the right to not go forward if we hear anything we don't like. We can do a resolution to that effect that,
Will
we'll put a
that get you
resolution
where
number
you
and
need
have
to
it.
be?
I think that would definitely be a very good start, and we would want to, have the documentation done in the next, month or two, really, because we need to have a firm commitment before we can, spend $500,000, $800,000 of our money at risk to develop the development.
Counselor, can you draft something
So
We can put together.
to bring back to our next meeting?
Commissioners are familiar with the resolution. And what I'll do is I'll take this letter,
Mhm.
I'll frame it up in the form of a resolution. We'll have the whereas and the now therefore and all that good stuff. We can put that on. I don't know if we can make September 2nd, but we could definitely make September 16th.
Would that do you? Would that help you?
yeah, that
September
definitely.
16th.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. We'll work on that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
And we say this is the first project that we do in Columbia County. With your help, we can do several more.
Well, that's why we're interested. If this works
Yeah.
out for us, maybe your company will want to do more.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other?
Is there anything else we want to add at this time?
The clerk says you have an open motion.
Do you want to withdraw your motion, Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, I'll withdraw that motion.
What the equipment barn and the Station 51, what?
You have a fire truck that's sitting out in the weather. That would be to expand the bay to one more thing. We think we can do it a little bit less than that, but that's budgeted number.
I move for
I got the second.
Okay, got a motion and a second for the expansion onto Station 51. All in favor?
Aye.
I do want to get some other bids on that, though. I think that is a little high.
That's just a budget
That's a
number.
budget
That's the budget figure.
Equipment barn. Kevin, what is the priority on this equipment barn?
Commissioner Ford, I don't think there's a priority on an equipment barn, but I mean, we've got millions of dollars worth of equipment.
Sitting out in the weather.
Is that what same?
I move that we give Kirby the equipment barn.
I do too, because when he has to eventually take over mowing, he's gonna have 4 or 5 tractors.
If we don't, he's gonna cry and
I was
moan
just
for
fixing
the
to say,
next
make sure
year.
you make it big enough for them roadside.
He's gonna go out there and
mowers we
stand in the
fixing to
rain
buy.
and take a selfie that he can't put his stuff inside of a
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
You sure we don't want to just go ahead and buy the tractors? Because you know it's coming. Lease them or whatever.
at this point, just assign one to each of us so we can just go out there and take care of it when they call?
All you gotta do is go to Hamilton County, pay them guys $1.50 hour more. They could do a real good job.
Yeah, we'll just take the tractors to y'all's yards, okay?
Okay, let's stay on point, Joe.
Is there anything else you want to fund?
You got your barn, shut up.
Anything else you want to fund?
What's your cybersecurity radio?
Cybersecurity is basically Motorola would add an additional protection.
He said we didn't need that.
The service monitor is important, but I think we can fund it out of existing funds.
I'm satisfied with what we've approved so far at this point. We'll put that money in reserve at this time.
David,
Yes.
putting this remainder in reserve, would this money be available if we get a company that want to locate in Columbia County, and there are some financial obligations that we need to do to ensure them moving here? Would that money be available?
I think Mr. Powell will agree with me that it's year-end monies rolled over from previous years, so there's no encumbrance on it.
David, I
unless you
have
put
one
it in
question.
Transportation trust. Yes, sir.
Fort White, do we need to make a motion on Fort White, what we're gonna do on Fort White at this time?
That's your call.
I mean, I think we need to go ahead and address that while we're in this meeting.
But David, that money right there, we got other monies we can fund Fort White out of beside that
Well,
right
we were
there.
thinking we were going to fund Fort White out of the ARPA money.
Yeah, that's not the ARPA money. Yeah,
So let's go ahead on and close this out.
yeah, we can close this out and then we'll go to Fort White. Okay.
Yes,
Now, did he
Attorney.
put, we did put 500,000 in for the extension, or for, it's out of there. Okay, I
Yeah.
want to make sure we did that.
For the what, Rob?
For the, Bascom Norris.
No,
We
just-
went ahead and put.
Yeah, we did 500,000 for Baskin Norris.
Just, Mr. Chair, you'll just want to call for a motion to put those funds in reserve to follow with all the other motions.
Okay, at this time, can I get a motion to put these
So
funds in reserve?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to
You will
ARPA.
comply with the charter. Okay. David, can you go back to the screen again? Spreadsheet? No, the spreadsheet. So basically, if you would like, I'd like you to make a motion right now to approve the millage rate and also to approve the floor budget as amended by your actions today.
Mr. Witt, can I get a motion to approve the millage rate?
Sir.
Scroll all the way down to the ARPA.
I'll do it for you if you need. Can you put it back up there?
Okay, the motion would be to set the millage rate
Photo op.
and approve the floor budget as amended.
Make sure you read it right.
I make a motion to approve the millage rate of 7.815 and the 2021-2022 floor budget as amended.
I'll second.
Everybody's second.
Everybody second. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, this is how you originally appropriated the ARPA money. Of that $10 million for infrastructure, right now we're talking about $5 million for Fort White and 1.5 for Bell Road sewer upgrade. Unless there's anything you want to change, we'll continue to proceed with this. Now, in terms of individual assistance, it can go towards housing assistance, paying people's rent, mortgage, yada, yada. We'd like to do back mortgage payment, and the United Way, who is here, has graciously volunteered to administer that for us. But also, we'd like to take half of that and put it into housing rehab or affordable housing. You can increase that or decrease that depending on what you want.
My question is, the original CARES money that we have,
2.9.
could we not, I thought we gave direction to do that earlier. Could we not bring that back, open up? I've had calls for individual assistance, especially now that people are having to quarantine from work and now work's not covering their time. So I've had calls for individual assistance. I've also had a couple of business calls from people who didn't apply the first time, who now, one of them told me they didn't know about it. I don't know how you didn't know about it. It was all over social media and everywhere else. But I've had several businesses call saying they're still having losses. I don't predict this second round of both of those to be nearly as big as the first round. So why don't we resurrect the 2.8 that we already got to cover individual and small business And if you need to pull that out of this and move that somewhere else, that's fine. But,
Okay.
I think before we allocate this, let's see if we get through what we've already got.
So when we
And-
say the $2.8 million or $2.9 million left in the reimbursement from the CARES program would go split between individual assistance and business assistance.
Yeah,
Would the
I mean-
individual assistance also include funding for housing rehab and affordable housing?
You could delineate it however you want to. We can always, as we did last time as a program got fluid, we could change it. We could, if we need to move money here or there, we can do it. But my point is, let's get that 2.9 million and get it working and get it in their hands and get it out, because
It just takes a motion.
Yep. So that's my motion, that we address individual and business assistance with the 2.9 of leftover CARES money that we already have. We can split it in half with the understanding that if we need to make adjustments to that as a program moves forward, we can do that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Now, my next question on both of those is, and Ms. Anchors is out here, is that something can United Way handle our business assistance too?
We'll bring you back a contract.
So you can handle individual and business? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We're open to discussing it. We haven't discussed the contract or the specifics around it yet, but we're open to exploring it, yes.
So they're gonna look at the contract we did last time for individual assistance, make any proposed modifications, and we'll bring that back to the board, which could include the business assistance.
The thing I don't want some legal firm in Gainesville involved in this in any way again, like we had last time, because that was a mess. We wound up just doing it ourselves anyway. So however we got to do to whatever the fastest way is to get this done and get this money out there, because I'm getting calls every day.
I think we could hire back temporarily Miss Geraldine.
Yes.
And let her work with United Way also. So we'll be doing some of it in-house and some of it through United Way. And I think we can handle it ourselves that way and not have to contract it out.
Okay.
I mean, we'll put natural, we'll help United, whatever y'all's cost is, we'll cover
Okay.
that. But
And we are definitely ready to begin the individual assistance as immediately as we can work out our agreement.
And what she pointed out to me on the phone is they would like to offer that to supplement the grants they already have, so it would be back pay of mortgages and grants.
Well, Dave, why don't you come back with a recommendation after reaching out to Miss Geraldine and on the best way to get them both out? We know individual aid, they're well equipped to do that immediately. So that's a no brainer, but bring us back something at the next board meeting. We can roll with this.
Do you still want to leave the ARPA grant funded the way you've got it set up?
I say at this time, you could take the individual and
Because I
business.
have to do a report on this
Well,
by the end of
I
next
think you
week.
could take the 2 million, the 1 million in each of those categories and put it in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And just,
Okay,
yeah, and just use the money we have set from the last grant.
so that's what I'll put together then for the report that's due
assistance.
at the end of the month.
I agree. Do we need to do a motion on that or?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
So that's it. If you want to adjourn this meeting and move into the next meeting, and if Kevin can go quickly, we could probably get through the next meeting pretty fast.
Yeah, let's adjourn this meeting at this time. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Did doing what we done, did we agree or disagree on Fort White water utility?
It was on the screen. They said
It was on the screen of $6 million for Fort White.
Beg pardon?
The $6 million of ARPA money is for Fort White, yes.
How much?
$6 million.
Okay, all right.
Actually, 5 million.
Actually, it's
Huh?
5 million.
Oh, 5 million, I'm sorry, 5 million. Yeah, it's 6 million total. Million Fort White.
Fort White, what about-
Right, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. It's
Okay.
6, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
my next, hold on before we adjourn. My next question is, once we have our final hearing and adopt this budget, how soon could we get engineers started to start designing that?
I think some of it's already started, to be
You
honest
have
with you.
cash in hand, so it's just as quickly as we can get the agreement together and the two boards vote to do it.
But David, on a project of that magnitude, don't you have to do RFQs and what have you?
Right now, the contractor is hired by the town of Fort White.
Correct,
We
but
would
on
have
our
to-
part,
We would have to agree with the town of Fort White to continue with that contractor or select a new contractor.
but is that within our policies, spending that kind of money?
Well,
What you're voting on now, if the contractor is employed by the town of Fort White.
Okay, so we-
let's address that at the time.
All you're doing now is,
Yeah, we'll address all that.
all you're doing now is allocating money.
Right.
Whether you run the route from Ellisville, all
We're
that's still
running
gotta
way
be
over
addressed.
time. We need to.
Yeah, it's gotta be addressed by both boards anyway. You can't decide. All you're doing is putting money in the pot. So
Right,
if at that time, if we decide on the most expensive option, the money's there. If we decide on the least, another option,
I
we
understand.
have a surplus.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
And then
All in favor?
We'll be back.
Okay, we're gonna move right
The
in.
other presentations.
Joe wanted 5 minutes.
Joe, on 5 minutes?
What's that?
Thank you, sir. Okay.
I couldn't hear you.
So we're not gonna
Yeah, I know that fella. I say, you want him?
Okay, we're gonna just move right on into additions or deletions to this agenda. Any to add to it or delete from it?
No.
Move to
Okay.
adopt the agenda?
Got a motion to adopt? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, Mr. Kirby, let's go.
Move to adopt the consent agenda.
Okay, got a motion to move to
Second.
adopt the consent agenda. Got a second, all in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have a few contracts to take a look at. The first is 242 East. This is from the Oasis Bar to US 41. We had 4 bids. Low bid was HIP Construction at $502,772.95. Recommended motion to approve the bid to HIP Construction at $502,772.95.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Next project is Hillcrest Street. We had 4 bids. CA Boone was low. Recommended motion to CA Boone at $149,339.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Kick Ladder had 3 bids. Boone was low at $212,963. I do want to make a comment. At the time of submission, the low bidder failed to provide a bid bond. However, as stated in paragraph 28 of the bidding procedures, the county reserves the right to reject any and or all quotes, to waive any minor discrepancies in the bids for all bidders equally, quotations or specifications, when deemed to be in the best interest of the county, and also to purchase any part or all or none of the materials, supplies, or equipment specified. This is a county-funded project. You would see the gap in the 2 bids, 212 versus 238.
I move that we approve the bid, CA Boone for Kick Ladder Road.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
The final thing, sir, Small County Consolidation Solid Waste Grant Agreement. The grant is from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and is utilized to assist in the cost of litter removal on the county roads. Estimated to be $93,750. Recommended motion approve this grant at the estimated cost of $93,750.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. The next item is the replacement of a redistricting committee member because Mr. Doug Peeler resigned. However, last night, the redistricting committee met and they actually came up with their proposal. They will submit a report on the 2nd. So as such, I'm asking the board to table filling this position till after you hear the report by the redistricting committee because it may not be necessary.
Okay,
I move we table.
Second.
got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
So Regional Park Master Plan, this is something the board's already approved. You've already funded it with the CARES money, $330,000. Staff wants to go ahead and have you approve the contract with the people so we can begin the plan.
I move we approve the contract with TBG Partners in the amount of $330,000.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 2021 R23, Century Ambulance Services, COPCN. They're asking for a renewal because they need it so they can get their state license and continue to provide our EMS services.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
BA 2158, basically, the clerk's office went through and said, ooh, we didn't budget for SHIP actually receiving state monies. They did receive a significant amount of state monies. This goes ahead and appropriates the money so that it reflects what has been received and expended.
I move we approve budget amendment 2158.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Mailing of solid waste assessment notices, Government Services Group. We had to make an emergency decision so that we could get it done in time. We had to basically do it out of house because the people who were going to do it didn't do it. So we had to hire government. We got 3 quotes, or 2 quotes, and the third quote said they wouldn't do it. Government services collection was the lowest at $30,780. That includes postage for the 20,500 notices. Those notices were sent out in a timely manner, so that is part of the reason why we're going to continue the public hearing until the 9th. But this is kind of a retroactive. We had to make this decision, and we wanted board to affirm the decision we had to make.
And how much did it cost last time to do it?
I don't know.
And who was supposed to do it, you said?
Typically, we have a firm that does it. I believe it was Tyndale Oliver, but I'm not positive. They were unable to do it, and Kyle came up and was talking with Lisa and said, we got to get it done. Could not get it done in-house. We just did not have, we didn't have the envelopes. We couldn't print it, stuff it, sort it, and post it in time, so we contracted it out to GSG. And then Kyle also brought in a quote from one of his vendors, but GSG was the low quote.
I move that we approve the contract with Government Services Group Incorporated for $30,780. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So because of this, this is just a notice, doesn't need a vote. The public hearing that you will have on the solid waste assessment that will take place on the 2nd of September, you will need to continue till the 9th of September and finish it on the 9th of September. It is advertised that way in accordance to what Heather Espinoza told us to do. And so I just wanted to let people know, we'll start the public hearing on the 2nd and we'll continue it to the 9th.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Finally, I need a vacation.
Nope.
I'm requesting 2 vacation days during the month of, or a couple of vacation days during the month of September.
I move
and
we
October.
approve leave request for the county manager.
I guess Mr. Kirby wants to go too.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is Mr. Kirby going with him?
I don't think he wants to see my niece's wedding. I mean, it's in Holland, Michigan. It's a nice wedding, but really,
All in favor? Aye.
thank you very much, and that is it.
Have a good time, David. Okay, this time we're gonna open public comments. 2 minutes. Anybody got public comment? Come on up, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this group. My name is Ralph Scott. I live on 246 Southwest Crockett Way. And my objective today is on behalf of some of the people who live out there with us to kind of find out if there is a plan, and if not, if we can work together to develop a plan to do something about the drainage that's out there. I recognize that we're dealing with a tremendous amount of rain this year, but anybody.
What was your address again? What road did you say you live on?
I'm sorry?
I was wondering what road. I didn't understand what road you said you lived on.
Crockett Way.
Okay. Okay.
This year is kind of a tough year because there's been a lot of rain, but anybody that lives out there can tell you that it doesn't require this amount of rain. It could be typical thunderstorm that we get up here any time of the year, and you'll find that the road is washing away. Slowly over the past few years, the road has started to erode because there's been an awful lot of grading on one side and not the other. The road has shifted probably 10 feet or so to one direction. It's not anymore centered like it once was. If it were centered and if there were drains on both sides of the road, we wouldn't have this problem. The only initiative I think that also needs to be addressed is taking a look at where the wetlands are supposed to be. Right now, the wetlands and the water ends up in everybody's property. I don't know if there's a specific designation that was done when that property was turned over to you all, but if it was, I'm not sure where it is, and I don't think anybody that lives out there is either. So that's my question.
This is in my district. I was actually out there yesterday, and the road is better than what it was, certainly when it was underwater. We've been out there. I've been in daily communication with Kevin every time it rains to go rehab the road, rehab and do whatever we can within the county's power. The problem with neighborhoods like this, and I've got several of them in my district, is they're developed 30 years ago, before there was a Swanee Valley Water Management, before you had to submit flood plans and everything else to develop a neighborhood. And they're in the low part of the area. And there's a big pond there now. There's a mobile home underwater where all the water drains. I'm committed to doing whatever the county can do within our power to alleviate this. But in talking with county staff, we're doing all we can do to alleviate it. You can't change the way water flows. And we certainly are living with the mistakes of the past in this neighborhood and several others. And I'm at a loss, Kevin. I've directed y'all to do whatever you got to do, but I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how to get the answer.
And Mr. Witt, I'll give you a lot of backup there. I mean, I'm dealing with Azalea Park on a daily, and every commissioner here has got, and I can give you about a list, about 8 of them right now. But we're dealing with a backyard flooded on Deanna Street, not affecting the house, but they don't want water in the backyard. But you're talking millions upon millions of dollars, and our hands are tied. You got to evaluate. Like what a commissioner says in South Florida the other day. He said, "Heck, if I had, the best thing to do is just buy the house and tear it down." Because you can't. You just ain't got enough money to throw.
Well, and we have done,
unfortunate for these people.
and we've done that, but you're limited on that too.
Yeah. Yep.
But I got a whole subdivision to meet that same criteria. The
That
houses is below the road.
Yep.
And all the driveways run this way to the house. And every time we get rain, they flood. And it's nothing I can do about it because it was built before we required a house. The flow will be 1 foot above the center line of the road. So every time it rain, I get all this water in that subdivision. It's just one of those things where we didn't have those kind of regulations back when it was built, and it's just a nightmare now.
No, Bible Camp Road's another one. I mean, I know we applied for some FEMA grants to alleviate that, and we're turned down, and we'll keep applying. But I just, within the power of what we have with graders and equipment, I don't know what we can do to change the flow of water. Mr. Kirby?
We will always continue to help our citizens. The easiest way to capture this is these subdivisions that were built prior to Swanee River Water Management District. They do not have what we call an ERP, an environmental resource permit, to redirect water without an engineering study that costs a lot of money. You are putting yourself subject to liability because there is no plan back in the day. That's your challenge in a nutshell.
So in the interest of a situation like this where, you're looking at a road that's been shifted one way or the other, doesn't matter if it's this road or any other road. One side's got a drainage, the other side has none. All of the water runs directly across the road, and it doesn't matter where. You can go all the way up to the very beginning of the road coming off of the paved highway, and you can see in there right now there's a pretty good sized lake on private property, because that's where the water all runs. But as you come down the road, you'll see where the grader or whoever did it cuts a little bit in, water runs down there, and then it stops. There's no longer a drainage ditch. It's just a flat road. So it builds up over that, runs back across the road again. So it's literally washing away parts of the road and, just eroding it. And it's like sugar sand, really, is what it boils down to. I mean, all that stuff just washes right into the drains, into the culverts, and clogs it up, and there's no place for it to go any further. I guess the request is, a couple of people were out there this past week and putting some stone on it, trying to build up a section of the road. Is where would be the problem? Just cleaning out the ditches and making sure there's a drainage ditch on each side of the road. I mean, I know some of the people that live there may not like that, but it's what's necessary.
Kevin, didn't we commit to doing that?
Commissioner Witt, we have committed to do what is in the best interest of the taxpayers for all the taxpayers. And we will continue doing that. But I do not feel comfortable redirecting water without an engineering study.
Then that's probably what needs to be done.
If we did an engineering study in these conditions, all over the county, we would go broke. We are inundated in this time of wet weather. Once again, as you indicated, prior to Swanee River Water Management District, there are no plans. We have hundreds, if not thousands of these situations.
I know Swanee County had very similar problems over the years, and they've looked at a different way of addressing some of these roads. I know the commitment seems to be here in Columbia County that that'll never be a paved road, and that's fine. Nobody's really asking for a paved road. But if there was something more stable than the sugar sand that sits on there once the grader goes down, the water would not run as easily as it does right now. I mean, now it just takes the topping right off and it just fills those ditches up. Doesn't take a lot of rain. And they
Mr.
fill up
Kirby.
and they're stuck.
Mr. Kirby, are you doing all you can out there on that road?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jenny Collier, and I own lot 28, 29, and 27 out at the Heatherwood subdivision. And I've had it for 30 years, and it has always flooded there on the corner of Manning. It's always been that way. I have talked to a couple of gentlemen that came out from the county, and what they had indicated to me, and what my understanding was that there is a natural ravine that runs back through that. And when I bought lot 29, we bought it very cheaply because it would go underwater when it rained, but we wanted the privacy of that one lot. But it would run back through the culvert and through that pond. I have been told that there is a blockage somewhere by one of the county gentlemen that came out. I believe it was the Swanee County management that came out. And that because it might have been possibly on public water, that they could not go in and research it and find out. But that if those blockage were taken care of, that the water would flow more naturally the way it should. And it sounded reasonable to me at the time, but then as I looked at it, I thought, well, then we're still looking at Marion Mann's Pond, who floods every time. I mean, will flood pretty well when it rains hard. But I don't know if there is a blockage, or I mean, it may be that the water flow is very normal, but there are blockages along the way that is preventing the water to run its natural route. And, that's all I know. So I didn't know if we've ever looked at it or, because like I said, mine's that whole, and the biggest problem is when it rains, we're pulling people out of it gets so high that we're having to pull people out of, and they can't get to work, thank God I've retired, but they can't get to work. So we're having to pull them out. They can't get to where they need to go. And I know that you are spending money, good, hard money out there, because you are out there every time it rains. You're out there, you're diligent. We appreciate you. We love you for it, because we're not like sitting in potholes and having to, because it washes the roads out. And we certainly appreciate that. But it just seems like, I told the grader the other day, they were putting it down, and I said, you're putting a truckload of sand down here. If it rains this afternoon, it's gone. And so it seems like we're almost throwing good money after bad. And if there is a blockage, or maybe if we build the roads or make them come down to where the flows differently, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. But I just know that we do appreciate what you're doing, but I didn't know if anybody ever checked to see if the water was being blocked somewhere along the road so that it could make its normal, flow of water that it needs to go. I don't know where it goes after Marion Man's Pond, but I know that there are people on her long there that their backyards flood. But I think that there is one, and maybe if it's just correcting what God gave us already, we would be okay,
We have several areas flooded right now.
Oh, I'm sure,
So
I'm sure,
it might be
yeah.
Record rain.
Yeah, and I'm sure of that. I mean, I've rode around, I've seen it, but we do appreciate what you're doing, but I just, like I said, I think if we could take and see if that natural flow is naturally flowing, might help. I don't know.
We'll make sure we check on that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Staff comments? Commissioners?
Yep. I want to make sure when we put that barn out there, that there's no quail hunting vehicles or boats put on. Can we get that commitment for you, Mr. Kirby?
Good commitments today, sir.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, I did want to say one thing. The consultant for the redistricting committee is going to get us a map probably as soon as today. I'm going to separately send that to y'all so y'all can begin reviewing it, because remember, the report under the charter is due on the 2nd. And if you have any objections or changes that you want to recommend, you have to do that in writing. So you'll have a little bit of homework for the next few days.
It's pretty much minor changes though, right?
They were, well, no, there were some substantial changes because to change the size of Commissioner Witt's district to account for the excluded prison population, everybody shifted. But just focus on those boundary line changes and see if you have any specific issues.
You
For the
gonna
most
email
part,
that out? Is that-
I'm going to, as soon as I receive it from Mr. Spitzer, I'm going to send it to you guys.
Okay. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We adjourned.
Wrong.